All right, this is the October video chat. I'm once again kind of embarrassed to even show my face considering my output so far, but I really have been working on things. I guess I want to start off. I'd say expect a minimum of 3 videos this month. I'd say if things go great, then maybe as many as 5. I'll see. There's some. One of them sort of depends on another person helping me with some stuff, so I don't want to give a time estimate on that. But I mean, there's going to be a couple game dungeons. I think X Freeman. I mean, that's I ironed out the worst bugs out of that, and there was a bit of a hang up with that where these bugs I ironed out should carry for probably dozens of episodes. So it was a bit of a roadblock that got over. I still plan to do the Freeman's Mind spree this year, though probably not so much this month. But if all goes to plan, there should be more Freeman's Mind this month. I'll say that. But yeah, I'm thinking a minimum of 3 videos, probably a maximum of 5. And I may have to, not exactly shelf, but delay this bigger mystery video I was working on, because I'm thinking that might be something where like it comes out maybe not this year, but like January, But like the Dream Software video ended up kind of being like that, where it just wasn't able to make it work, but then it came out in January. This mystery side video is kind of a bigger one-off one. It's in terms of work, it's similar to the games as a service one, where there was a lot of research that went into it. It's going to be like that. But yeah, I'll have something for Halloween for sure. Yeah, I'll definitely have a Halloween episode. I'm hoping to have more than one, but I don't want to promise on that yet. I'm hearing noise from the ceiling, which is interesting, but probably won't get caught on the mic. I say it's interesting because I'm on the top floor, so ceiling noises are always curious. There's like this maintenance level on my floor too, which is locked off. So I sometimes imagine it's like was it the House Under the Stairs situation where there might be people crawling around up there? That's a good movie for Halloween if you want something to watch. I watched that again a few months ago. It absolutely holds up. It's definitely a movie that keeps your attention. Yeah, The People Under the Stairs. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I have a few announcements. Okay, so more videos coming this month. I'm sorry I don't have it yet. Oh yeah, this is probably a bad idea, but I'm going to try and stream this month also. I guess I'll start next weekend. I'm going to stream Sunless Sea. That's one I've been meaning to play, but never. It has a bit of a learning curve, so I figure, hey, what a great idea to just set out blind with the chat as my crew here that can steer me through the abyss or not. So so I figure a game with a big. I figure that's a game you're kind of expected to die a few times. So I figure I'll just go out blind the first time and maybe learn a thing or two. Then I'll really start leaning in on the chat. That's my plan. So, let's see. What else? Oh yeah, here's something I wanted to ask the chat about. Because, yeah, I remember last time it came up, like, one of the questions was about retirement. Then I asked people to message me if they knew what was going on with the Federal Reserve. And I actually got one email that was very good. They explained a lot. But this isn't about that at all. This ties back more to the Deus Ex Invisible War episode where I talked about a Carrington event, where solar flare just blasts the earth and it would have knocked out all electronics, I think was in 1859. Well, apparently that was like I thought the odds of that were like 1 in 100 years, but apparently it depends on sort of the solar season, and we have more of those. We have the probability of more of those coming up, and we really did miss a huge one back in 2012. But there might be another one coming in a few years or not. You know, it's kind of like predicting earthquakes. You're not, you can know there's a fault line, you know you're at risk, but you can't predict whether it's going to happen soon or not. But what got me thinking about it was for for data preservation. I was wondering, do people have recommendations on that? Because I kind of wanted something just for longevity purposes anyway, to protect against bit rot, essentially. And what I arrived at and was gonna, well, I still plan to pursue it, was it looked like a sort of a good compromise were these, they're called Millennium discs, or M-disc for Blu-ray, and those can go up to 50 or 100 gigabytes. And my understanding is they're almost, the composition of them, they're almost like rock. Although I don't understand how you burn to them in the first place then, but they certainly withstand real-world testing against the elements. Like somebody took one, I saw a test where he burned one on a regular Blu-ray, writable Blu-ray disc, and one of these, and just left them outside. The wind, snow, solar radiation, I think it might have even frozen. And then he left them outside for months and then buried them underground for part of it also, just in the dirt, as another test. And the regular Blu-ray disc was just utterly devastated. And the M disc, after he cleaned it up, it worked fine. So, I mean, I wouldn't put everything on there, but you could, like my rarest stuff, or, I'm thinking like rare music, rare games, all script and working material for the videos that I do, or the videos themselves. That could all fit on like a 50 or 100 gig disc or a couple. Yeah, there's small capacity for days. Yeah, so I wouldn't back up like a major mainstream game with it. Like I would not try to like burn like well, I don't even have it, but let's say it's something like Red Dead Redemption 2. That's probably over 100 gigabytes, right? But that's also a very popular game and could probably be salvaged. But I'm wondering, would those survive? What was it? Yeah, the Carrington event. There's an official term for them. I think CME. I think was it coronal mass ejection or something like that. Would those survive that? Because you don't just have an EMP wave, you also have gamma radiation, as I understand it. So it could be the only real solution would be to have just like a lead line case. But even then, how thick would the lead have to be? So, or you wouldn't really want direct exposure to the lead. Would the seams where it shuts still provide too much leakage? I don't know. So if anybody out there studies this sort of thing and has thoughts on that, feel free to email me, rosswscott@gmail.com. Somebody's talking about cloud storage. I mean, I got a good deal on cloud storage. Yeah, I'm not paid to promote this or anything, but there was this one place, Starchive. They might still have the deal, I don't know, but they offered 1 terabyte of cloud storage for life, and it was like for $100, but with a coupon I got down to like 83 or something. So that's what I've been using for all my storage for cloud stuff. But yeah, I have layers of. But if it was a true Carrington event, even cloud storage might not have you covered. It depends on how robust the servers were. So I wouldn't be trying to save everything, but just like the most valued stuff to me that's like, in smaller chunks. I mean, I could fit a whole lot of old games on a 100 gigabyte disk, or a couple of them, So, if anybody has, someone said, you should ask yourself if the media reading devices will survive first. Well, that is a question, but if the damage is so thorough that we've lost the ability to read Blu-ray disc, like it's just gone, you know what? I have bigger problems than worrying about my data then, I figure. because that Blu-ray is pretty established standard. I mean, if it's that thorough, then it was all folly worrying about the data preservation anyway, and I should just start pursuing the agrarian society route for the people who are to survive. So yeah, I want to. Because a regular Blu-ray, a lot of regular Blu-ray players can read them. So this isn't the most, I mean, I've got bigger problems then if I can't read Blu-ray discs. Let's see. But yeah, if people have ideas about that, there's information out on the medium. Like, does that seem likely to survive it? Or maybe the lead line case is enough, or I don't know. This is just satisfying my paranoia, about data preservation. So, I mean, my computer probably wouldn't survive that event, but, if the data could come back up after a few years, then that would still be pretty good. Okay, yeah, a few other announcements. Oh yeah, this is, you can also email me about this. This is turning into sort of my white whale here. I've been wanting to go back and try to get old games that have great atmosphere working in VR. I can't even get this to run now. I'm on Windows 10. It might be something specific to my system, but Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. I've been trying everything on it. I tried everything on the PC Gaming Wiki page. There's multiple kind of fan-made patches. It crashes every time after the loading screen, just to the desktop. And I checked the event viewer, and it usually says something about dinput.dll. I tried unplugging Gamepad for it. That didn't seem to affect it. Unless I do compatibility mode, and then it still crashes in the same place, but then it's something about, what is it, NTDLL, I think, or NTOS, or something related to the kernel, I think. Yeah, it's like when I had that footage for it on the Dream software, I actually just recorded that off my secondary system, which I think had Windows 7 on it at the time. Or that might have had Windows 10, but it was like a clean box install of it, or an earlier version of Windows 10. So, is the game itself crashing as a VR thing? No, it's the game itself. Like, this is independent of VR. So, have you tried using a PC emulator? Well, if I use a virtual machine, then I can't get VR working on it. I mean, I need access to. So I probably could get it working on a virtual machine, but then VR is out of the question. So, I tried DG Voodoo. I tried that also. Try Yankee and input DLL from the game that released around the same time. Yeah, maybe. I have to take some more research to look it up. So the VR is going to be a step after I confirm the game is working. Then I can fiddle with VR, but I need it running natively, unfortunately, which seems possible, but let's see. I mean, this has been it could just be something specific to my system, in which case it's just a nightmare, but let's see. But yeah, that's what it says in event viewer if I look at like the crash error. Okay, keep moving on. Oh yeah, because I get asked this, I don't have too much to announce for new things that I've seen or read, but for games, I played a couple, and I can definitely give a recommendation. This one I almost did a stream of, though I'm glad I didn't, because I found out later there was a copyright mode for the music, which I was completely unaware of, so that could have tanked my Twitch account without me even realizing it. But the game Hunt Down, I definitely recommend it. It's, I would describe it as like a AAA cyberpunk shooter platformer if it was made like during the Super Nintendo era. Like that's like, there's only a few things that are like actually, was it anachronistic? Like it wouldn't have had this if it came out during that time, but they all make the game better. Like it's in widescreen. You have a lot more voice acting in it. That has less censorship than a game of that time probably would have. So yeah, if you want like a AAA-ish Super Nintendo experience, like a platformer shooter, I absolutely recommend it. It's like the atmosphere is great, music's great, gameplay is pretty good. There's a lot of funny stuff in it. Yeah, so full recommendation for that game. Um, I made it to the final boss, but I decided I didn't feel like going through all the final boss is basically a pattern endurance grind, and I kind of didn't feel like doing that. But I played through the rest of it. It was pretty approachable. Yeah, so yeah, full recommendation of that. And the other one, this one's a more limited recommendation. I enjoyed it for what it was. This is one I actually played before, but I never finished it all the way. It's called Death Trap. And I've mentioned before, this is an action RPG tower defense hybrid. And the story's nothing special. The graphics, I actually don't like a lot of what they did aesthetically. They like to smudge it with brown and tinting all over. But the gameplay is relatively fun. It's, like I've mentioned before, how one of my favorite parts of Path of Exile is the Blight gameplay. Well, this is probably the closest thing you can get to a game based on just that sort of thing, where you're just stopping hordes from coming, and you have the tower defense element, but it's also an action RPG where you have to use your abilities to kind of contain the waves that are coming at you too. And I had beaten the thing is, once you beat it, then there's like this, they raise the difficulty and sort of remix the map on what happens. And there's like 4 levels of that. And I never beaten that before. And I finally beat it doing on the additional 4 levels using a different tactic. Though I wasn't able to beat the last level with like the perfect score. It got too overwhelming. And that's with me finding an exploit for it or stumbling into one. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but I beat it. I got a perfect score on everything except the last level, and that was just brutal. But yeah, if you enjoy that sort of gameplay, I'd play it. If you don't, then you probably won't enjoy the game. It doesn't have a lot going for it otherwise, but it's kind of fun. Let's see. Oh yeah, the chat's mentioning Blazing Chrome. Yeah, I played that one too, though. I only got so far because I'm not a Contra master. That's one where, yeah, like let's make a Contra successor, and it definitely follows all the patterns of that. But yeah, Hunt Down's the real winner if you like Super Nintendo platformers. I'd say it's a no-brainer for buying it. Okay, let's see. Have any? Yeah, okay. I think those are all my announcements. So I'll get to the questions here. Have you ever considered making videos about the various hell jobs you had and ranting about them? I love the Ross Rants videos. I might end up doing a couple more Ross Rant videos, but probably not about the jobs. A lot of bad memories of those jobs. And the thing is, I mean, when I think of like all the funny and interesting things that have happened on my jobs, those are for the ones that weren't really the hell jobs. Like the hell jobs are more just suffering. Like there's a lot of fun and interesting stuff happened at my first computer repair job, and that one wasn't a hell job at all. I see. There's a difference between a job that's just a job you go to. You may not love it, but it's there, you can deal with it, and jobs that you just utterly hate and are just burrowing their way into you psychologically. Like I was thinking about like at I guess the first real job I had as a kitchen steward, the guy who was the manager of the kitchen, I seem to remember him rocking a toothbrush mustache. I remember thinking that was kind of, that's really gone out of style since Hitler, but he went for it. He was kind of a skinny guy, wore big glasses. He constantly gave this vibe that he was both stressed out and kind of a disagreeable person. So it's like some of it's kind of understandable, but He didn't really come across like Hitler, but just a real stressed out kind of guy that's not fun to be around. He's the sort of person where maybe if he wasn't so stressed out, he might be more fun to be around, but you never know because he was always just, yeah, kind of on edge. But yeah, he kind of had a toothbrush mustache going on. So that, I remember that kind of, I remember that about it. Yeah, I lost a lot of sleep on that job. Let's see. I was just sleeping in a tent. Let's see. Yeah, like with the security guard job I had, my boss was actually really nice. He's probably the only reason I stayed on that long. Yeah, he sort of, yeah, he was an ex-cop. He kind of had a Santa Claus vibe going for him. And, and I would see him every once in a while where sometimes the other security people, they were like a higher tier than just a regular guard where they would get like reports of like repeat shoplifting. So they would actually be going in there. See, my job was just the scarecrow, just to be there to show there's a security presence. Whereas people at a level above you, they might actually go in and try to like spot out people they think are the shoplifters. And what they would do is they'll actually pretend shop, where they would sort of shadow them, but then just kind of load stuff into the cart and being pretending shop and just kind of be keeping an eye out to see if, the person they're suspecting is shoplifting. And like, I remember he was there one day and I remember thinking, man, he was, I talked with him a little bit that day. I said he was doing a really good job because he had this look on his face that was like just completely clueless. And I'm sure it was intentional, but like you would not have suspected him of being security at all. It's just this kind of guy in his 50s or 60s, just kind of looking around. He was, when I talked to him, he would say, yeah, he said like, where am I? Like, it was, yeah. And there was another guy who was like sort of the security prowler guy who said like he would wear like a hoodie and have, I think he had, what was it, a Disturbed logo on it, and just, I forget if he had a facial piercing or not, but not the person you would suspect as being a security guy, so yeah, I'm trying to think if there are any other stories. I mean, the other job, was going out off trail into the woods, putting up bug traps. That wasn't so bad except for the ticks. Just the ticks, always ticks on you. Doesn't matter how you dress. That just determines whether it's going to be a few ticks or a lot of ticks, and that kind of wore down on me psychologically pretty fast. Just always having a tick on you at the end of the day. Let's see. And then working on the phones, that was the one where just I have a couple stories about that, but they're not that great. I'm sure there's better ones online. Where I mean, it was just the timing of that. I mean, helping people with their tech problems, that wasn't so bad. It was just the relentless monitoring you, knowing the big brother is always monitoring you to the second on this, and wants that call as efficiently, as fast as possible. That's what wore me down. But yeah, I might have some few Ross rants, but there'll probably be more fun stuff. If you were to dress up for anything for Halloween, what would it be? This is an answer that could change, but I mean, part of me would want to go as, the Phantom of the Office there with the trench coat and top hat and the mask. I kind of like the look of those masks along with the top hat. It's a cool, creepy look. But actually, when I was in high school for Halloween, I went as Dracula from Bram Stoker's Dracula, the movie, during the day, where he has like I got lucky and found a frock coat just for nothing at a thrift store that kind of looked like that. And so I had that with a top hat, and I already had sunglasses that sort of looked like that. And my hair was the right length and everything. So I remember as I was walking to school, and like a car passed by, they honked, and this guy shouted out the window, "Ross, you look just like him." So I had a pretty decent look of Dracula during the day from the movie. going on with that. I could probably still do that now. My hair's, get my beard and mustache looking the right way, and just get the hat and coat. So yeah, that'll probably be that'll probably be an easy one to pull off for me. Gary Oldman as Dracula during the day. Yeah. So this isn't like the beehive hair one. This is like when he's been rejuvenated and walking around in public. So I could pull that off pretty easily. Let's see. You mentioned earlier you found places in your town that Magda didn't even know about. If you should put a percentage, how much of your town have you explored so far? Well, I'm in a different city now, but it's near there. It's hard to measure this stuff because, on one level, there's just like the main paths that you've been on versus like every last alley and path. So, I mean, there's probably, I don't even know the city limits of where I am right now. So, I mean, if I had to just gathering like the whole city, I'd say it's probably only like 10 to 20%, but like in a radius around me, like, I don't know, like let's say 2 or 3 mile radius, it's probably closer to like 85, 90%, if I were to guess. So yeah, I was thinking actually I should probably get a bicycle again soon so I can kind of increase my range for a while. But yeah, in terms of just radius around me, because that's what I'll do for exercise a lot of time. It's just like, okay, I haven't been here. Let's see what's here, and go down that path. So yeah, I wasn't joking at all in the cave story. So, no, it's not. I always get it mixed up. It's like the Cave Saga. Yeah, Cave Story is that platformer. No, the Cave World Saga. The Cave World Saga. Yeah, there's no way I wouldn't have found that place if I lived in that town. And because you can see the path going there. It's like, okay, the bridge is out. Well, maybe I can climb it, or maybe I can find an alternate path there, or, I mean, or fix the bridge. It's, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of nitpicking the game, but if this is such an ancient lost secret, you should at least have to travel out to the middle of nowhere. Like like that temple that they had by you just landing from this wild dragon that you tamed, and then you're on that peak. Okay, that's a much better excuse for this lost area because who knows where that is? That could have been lost for centuries. Especially if you have a less developed society where transportation isn't easy. But I mean, if it's just next to the nearest town, come on, with sculptures and a path leading you on, come on, it doesn't check out. But it's just a thought that came to my head because everywhere I've lived, over time, I'm eventually gonna see almost everything in the radius around me. So, let's see. Have you watched any movies in a VR theater? I'm sure it'll increase the spookiness. No, not... Well, I tried a little bit of a 3D movie. My dad actually has a 3D TV that he's been kind of obsessive about and finding 3D movies, so he's watching a whole bunch. He sometimes recommends some to me, though. I don't know, I've been less wowed by most 3D TVs that I've seen than VR, or even the stereoscopic 3D in games, because whole lot of them just didn't push the depth enough for me. But I haven't seen his TV either. But I tried watching some of, he said the depth was pretty good, and it wasn't terrible, though. I thought the writing was kind of weak from what I saw. Was it Peabody and Sherman? It's like a modern remake of the skit from Rocky and Bullwinkle. The 3D was interesting. I watched about 15, 20 minutes of it. I was not getting won over by the writing. But I noticed for my headset, I think I might need more resolution if I actually wanted to watch just let's say a regular movie in a 3D theater, or just maybe, regular movie in like a VR theater. because the resolution is not quite there if you're really focusing on the picture. I'd rather just watch it on a screen. But I have the Samsung Odyssey Plus, so maybe if you had something like the Reverb 2, or the one I'm really after is the Pimax XK. Was it the Pimax 8KX? That's the one where that one's like essentially two 4K panels in there. Maybe that one's high enough so that it's good enough for movie watching. This one's good enough for gaming. Like, it doesn't take quite the level of focus on small details to get immersed in it and be irritating. But it's not there for movie watching for me yet. I think I was kind of feeling that watching the Peabody and Sherman movie. Maybe I'll finish it. I'll see. But it was kind of overwhelming at first because there were a lot of rapid cuts, and that's sort of an action movie and meant for a younger audience. Well, no, it's not really an action movie, but there's a lot of action scenes that get cut quickly that aren't necessarily the best fit for 3D. But I found myself kind of getting used to that. So, but yeah, I need more resolution for movies, I think. But for older games, it's fine. I don't really have many complaints for the Odyssey Plus. So. Yeah, and this has the same resolution as the Index. Although the Index might have better details because it has something it does better with the subpixels. I forget the details, but let's see. But yeah, if the resolution got big enough, well, that's the other reason I want the Pimax, because it has the wide field of view, so that might be more easier on the eyes too and more immersive. Because when I play games, I kind of feel like it'd be nice if it was a little wider. And so that might be, it's hard to say if it would still be more comfortable watching on a screen, or who knows, maybe it would be nice just watching the movie in a virtual theater and getting into it that way. So it's hard for me to say, without trying it out. Right now, the tech needs a little bit more of a boost. And it sucks because I think Pimax is the only one making even remotely affordable wide field of view VR headsets. Because there's XTAL and, what was the name of that other one? Oh yeah, the Star VR or something like that. They have them also, but theirs are stupid expensive. Like we're talking thousands of dollars for those. So, I mean, unless you're a company that really needs something like that, it doesn't really make any sense. Whereas Pimax has more of a range, and who are you? That's a good question. I've seen your vids recommended to me on YouTube. I also loved your stream at Team Fortress Classic. Well, check out Ross's game. Ask the chat what's a good video to start on me with. I would recommend maybe the Mabus episode. I forget how to pronounce it, but yeah, I'm Ross. So, yeah, you can ask the chat where you should start on me with videos. Because Freeman's Mind isn't for, I do Freeman's Mind, but that's not for everyone either. Let's see. Okay, some more questions. Yeah, I've only played they're asking about the Stalker game. I still need to play the sequels. I don't know, they just weren't, it wasn't quite grabbing me. I don't know. And let's see. Yeah, they're talking about how you drink vodka to cure radiation. Well, I think you have that in the original. There is some truth to that, but it's like the sort of thing where that's like, it's like that's like 2 or 3% true, where I think like vodka or like kinds of wine do something so that your thyroid doesn't absorb as much of the radiation or something. It's still not a cure to radiation poisoning by any stretch of the imagination. But if you were like at some threshold, that might lighten the effects by like a couple percentage points or something. That's my understanding of it. So it's not complete fantasy, but you got to have a balance. Look, it would probably not be a fun game with a realistic representation of radiation. Like, unless you're the sort of type that likes these sort of masochistic games that are just like brutal survival ones, because it's not a good time. And your only real winning move is just don't get exposed past a certain point, you know. There is no real rat away like in Fallout. So, to kind of expand it for most people, they gotta do that to just have some balance of a fun game rather than more realistic one. Okay, let's see. Moving windows around here. I lost my place. Oh yeah, this is one I probably need to think about longer, but they're saying, besides the French Revolution, which obscure, underused time periods would you want to see more of in games? Yeah, I was thinking about that, like which period, well really I'd like to see another pass at the French Revolution besides Assassin's Creed Unity, but I was trying to think of like what periods would I want to see from Assassin's Creed. One that came to mind might be like during like the Mayan times or Incan Empire. I think there hasn't been much on that. That could be interesting. Well, part of it for me is I can be a sucker for different environments, and I like the idea of like, oh yeah, let's have the cool Mayan pyramids and like thick jungle and lots of stuff to explore. So I kind of like that environment. But there was a lot going on during that time too. It can be interesting. Well, actually, I got to see a little bit of that. That's something else I only played a little bit of, but I plan to play more. I finally started Journeyman Project 2. So, and one of the areas you can go to is during that time. Let's see. So I was saying the Roaring 20s. Yeah, maybe. There's been a lot of games in that era, like especially with Mafia stuff. The Enlightenment era, they're saying in the chat. Well, I don't know. I think, well, like, let's say we're doing an Assassin's Creed game. I think something during, like, the Civil War era might be interesting, too. I mean, you could have, like, because sometimes they cover, like, a period of time. So you'd have, like, the build-up to it. But I mean, I'm a little biased because I grew up partially in Virginia, so I'm more familiar with that kind of environment. So that kind of naturally increases my interest in it. I mean, the Civil War expanded a large area, but a whole lot of it was in that region. I mean, that's where it ended, Appomattox, Yeah, I have to think about some other ones. Well, because again, like some environments, it's not always just like the time period, what's going on, but like some cultures or times in history, I like the artistic aesthetic of like the buildings or like the clothes and stuff like that. And so that's a real silly reason, but that can be the sort of thing that draws me in. So that's why I kind of like a whole lot of the like 1700s European style. Everybody's wearing like three-corner hats and the buildings have a different look. And I kind of like the aesthetic of it. And again, like I mentioned, like during for the Mayan civilization, there's a lot of cool. I like a lot of Mayan art and architecture and stuff like that, and the jungle environments. Well, actually, during the 1800s in Africa might be an interesting time period where you could have like the perspective of a lot of native cultures, but you also had like the British imperialist influence coming in there. And also, there were parts of Africa that were very wild then, that late too, where you still had these tribes that might have been isolated for hundreds of years, or some of them could be quite dangerous, So I like that kind of like exploration aspect of it too. So that might, so like, parts in like Central Africa, like the Congo or something like that. Where you can kind of have a few different perspectives of it showing the, like an African, Yeah, Assassin's Creed during the 1800s. Yeah, that could be very interesting because you could show plenty of different angles of that. And then you have, I really like, one theme I love a bunch in movies, games, literature is just going off into the unknown. So there were some time periods that were a little more wild where we didn't know what to expect, going deeper. And I mean, I guess unfortunately with historically accurate stuff, you kind of do know what to expect, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some time periods that the sort of pop culture knowledge of it isn't very accurate at all. So if you have something that's historically accurate, that might be a surprise for a lot of people playing it. So that could be interesting. Yeah, I think, what was it? Yeah, somebody's asking why should Assassin's Creed be locked down? No, it doesn't need to, but Assassin's Creed series probably has the most resources thrown at trying to make a reasonably historically accurate game. I mean, yeah, obviously the main plot line isn't anything that happened, but for like everything else surrounding it, like portrayal of like the culture, like the historical events, they try to get that right, is my understanding. I think, what was it, in Assassin's Creed Origins, they actually predicted, like the game actually just took an educated guess on this entrance to one of the pyramids. And then after the game came out, like archaeologists actually discovered that. So it was such a good educated guess. They called it before it was actually known. So yeah, but yeah, some of it for me can be the aesthetic. So yeah, okay. So I'm repeating myself. I'm really trying harder to not repeat myself so much, because everybody wins if I do that. Okay, so next question. Do you miss the golden age of the internet at all? Meaning the mid-90s to mid-2000s period when forums and chats were the main form of communication, and extreme commercialization and censorship weren't an issue in many countries. And then they're saying they feel like it all went downhill after Facebook became popular. Not too much, but I mean, there's like a few things. Because like I've always used the internet more as like a tool for kind of finding things I'm interested in. And there's kind of more people on and more resources to go through now. And in that way it's gotten better. But I mean, I guess things I miss were the aesthetic was kind of more clunky. And in some ways that could be cooler sometimes with like how the pages were presented. I mean, I think there definitely is a place to have everything looking more slick the way it does now, although I'd argue in some ways some of the obsession with like flat styling with colors and icons, in my eyes, is almost a regression. But there's still plenty of slick looking sites that I appreciate that, especially if I'm trying to get to information. But I like the idea of like having this kind of like 90s pizzazz to more sites, or having a little more style shown off, where I mean, some of it just came with the time of having more pixelated graphics, but I'd like to see more things embracing that. I mean, not everything, but yeah, the clunky 90s charm. Yeah, I'd like to. I'm gonna talk about this more in the GUI follow up eventually, but I was looking, I guess last month, trying to find some icon replacements to slowly build back some sort of coherent theme on my desktop. And I really had to search to not find icons that weren't just flat, to just either completely like monochrome or just flat shaded. And it's like, I don't really like this style. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a legitimate style. Some people are gonna like that. Sure, have that there. But like, why does this utterly dominate icons? Like, I mean, this is, I had to go through so many links before I found something that had a decent collection of icons that didn't do that. So, I feel like for visuals there was a lot more variety, actually, in like late 90s and early 2000s in a lot of things. So, but that's less about the internet. Another thing, at some point, Google had a shift with its searching. Because I want to say at one point, maybe in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, Google search was really awesome. Like if you were trying to find something very obscure, you could find it. I mean, like it would just be like some guy's site that, you know, he just made this homepage on like a certain thing, and it's still reasonably good at finding things, but it's introducing a lot more crap now that used to be the was basically what internet searching was like before Google came along. You know, where like if I do a search on YouTube now, I might find a few videos of what I'm looking for, but then I'll find just popular crap that's not related at all to what I'm searching for, and a lot of those. And then if I eventually hunt down the video later, I can have the exact title and may not still even find that. Yeah, so it's, I feel like Google is kind of you're seeing the corporate shift back where, okay, yeah, we're going to show you some of what you're looking for, but we're also going to push our mega popular stuff that we have big brand deals with, or our algorithm gives us more money for, rather than this long tail stuff that you're trying to find. So it's, I'm not, yeah, I feel like if Google's had a regression, I'm sure it's intentional too, but like, I want to say mid to late 2000s, man, if you, like, let's say you look up, I mean, I like having the option of maybe tangential stuff. Like I like the idea of there being like a switch. Like, only show me the most relevant stuff versus show me stuff that I might like also. Like, I like that idea of having like a discovery mode, but I don't think we're even getting that with like a discovery. It's just, some crap is just like, hey, this got 20 million views. You should watch it. And like, I feel like some of the videos I get sent to me, that's all it is. Like, this isn't related at all to what I've been searching with or searching for in the past month. And I like the idea of having the option to mix that up because, hey, maybe I do want to find something interesting I didn't know about, but maybe I don't. You know, it depends on what I'm looking for. So, yeah, I feel like the searching is kind of, it's a little muddier than it used to be. I think it kind of hit its apex in the mid 2000s, somewhere around there. Where if you want a long tail, okay, I'm repeating myself. Trying to think of anything else about the internet that I preferred. I mean, it's yeah, it's a mix. I mean, yeah, I think it's mostly been an improvement, but yeah, okay, yeah, I guess that was the other thing is like the sort of consolidation of everything. Like in some ways that's nice, but in other ways you can kind of see the influence, like I mentioned with Google. And it was, it's a mix. It's like some things I like, some things I don't like, but okay, I should keep on moving. Oh, I might have missed this question. Someone finished a playthrough of the original Fallout. Now they're on Fallout 2. And they'd only played the Bethesda Fallout games until a few months ago. They find it strange how far from the source material Bethesda has taken the Fallout franchise. Yeah, it is different, isn't it? Do you think the modern interpretations of game world set forth in the 90s stray too far from the source material? Well, I need some other examples. Yeah, like the chat. That SEO is cancer. Yeah, it might be. For Fallout, I mean, I might eventually talk about this in videos. It's like a lot of Bethesda games have that kind of hollowish feeling to me, and the original Fallout games didn't. I think that's the best way I can say it. Whereas I don't really miss the turn-based combat. I was fine with that change. But I can see where diehards might want the turn-based combat, but See, everybody's praising New Vegas. I don't remember New Vegas. I remember it being better than 3, but I still remember liking the writing and direction of the originals more because I don't know if you may. I'm trying to think of a game that's really open-ended that I really like the story towards, and I'm drawing a blank right now. Maybe I'm just not, because I mean, I really like Deus Ex, but that's not like super open-ended. That's like, you know, you have your hubs that you explore, then you move on. Uh, I mean, the Grand Theft Auto game, I feel like at some point, if a game's just like incredibly open-ended, the story gets kind of diluted, or it doesn't have the same punch because the pacing isn't there because you wander off. And I feel like there probably is a solution, but I haven't quite seen it yet. Yeah, somebody's recommend. Yeah, if you miss the old Fallout, you should probably be playing Wasteland games. Let's see. Dark Souls has this. Yeah, Dark Souls felt pretty cohesive, but that. Yeah, that might. But see, Dark Souls, it has more of like the 3D. Yeah, okay, that might be it then, because it's sort of the same thing as Subnautica, where you do have the free roaming aspect of it, but it's kind of steering you in certain directions. And if you kind of go with the flow, you're probably going to have the best time that way. Yeah, because Subnautica nailed it. Like, because that was pretty free roam. But at the same time, there is a lot of appeal to having a big free roaming game. I'm just trying to figure out like how you know, okay, I had a thought, you know what might actually work? Because I saw this as a headline. I haven't read the article. It's from PC Gamer. They're talking about open world games. They should be less about your targets on the map. I'm thinking, yeah, that might be it. So maybe you could have this big developed story in it, but then you got to find a lot of it. So there wouldn't just be icons on your map telling you where it is. Maybe if you did it that way, that might be a much more satisfying experience. So, yeah. So it's playing Subnautica right now. Yeah, it's Subnautica is a good experience. And yeah, it is open ended, but the story kind of progressed in a very satisfying way. So maybe that's the trick. Maybe they're telling us too much, so that if and of course, if you don't want to do that, somebody's going to put it online and you can figure out exactly where to go. But if you just want to go in there, find out for yourself, and they could do maybe little architectural tricks to kind of steer you in certain directions, you know, so that you're likely to find like this storyline plot point. So yeah, that might be the way to solve it. Like, because then you have that sense of discovery and learning to know the world, but you could it's not just like, okay, go to this point and then you'll get this part of the story. So I think maybe, yeah, that might be it. I don't know. It's tricky. But yeah, I would need more examples of games that stray from the source material. I mean, sometimes that can happen as short as a sequel. I mean, let's see. Modern interpretations of game worlds that have strayed far from the source. I'd have to hear more examples. I'm having trouble thinking of many that have done that, because that doesn't happen too often that they revisit. Like I know, like I'm thinking of Syndicate, and I need to play the original. I played I think it was 2012 one. I actually thought that was an interesting, okay. Visually, I thought that game was very impressive. It was just sort of by the numbers, first person shooters. But if you were expecting a Syndicate sequel, I could see where people would be very disappointed because it's not like that at all. It doesn't. The story wasn't anything special. In my understanding, I think the writing might have been better in the original. But yeah, it's something like that. Okay, so I'm gonna keep moving on because I don't have a great answer. What's your take on traditional YouTube content creators abandoning edited content and shifting over to streaming full time? And that they're saying they've seen a lot of their favorite YouTubers do this. And yeah, I guess I'm part of I am going to be streaming this month. I'll have details in the description, and I'll put it up on the website also, or Twitter. Yeah, I guess I'm being part of the problem, but I'm not. This is just kind of like a fun thing to do maybe for October. You know, it's not going to dump. For sure, the main videos are going to be the priority. So if I have to sacrifice the streaming, I will. But I think I can pull it off. Lately, I've been going like a machine, so if I keep it up, then that should be all right with the videos. But yeah, they say they get nervous when commentators keep bugging creators to do more streaming. Yeah, see, the way I look, I mean, the way I look at streaming, it's like, I feel like I would, I feel like I get this feeling like if I were to just abandon everything and do nothing but streaming, I'd be kind of robbing myself and you a little bit. Because it's like I wouldn't have quite the satisfaction for accomplishing some of the things I did. Like, I think it really would have bugged me if I never like finished made some of the civil protection episodes. Because I would have just felt like I could do something like, I mean, I still want to do more kind of creative things like that from original script, rather than just reacting kind of to a game. But the way I look at streaming is it's sort of a replacement for me. Like, you know, when I was younger, you know, you might go over to a friend's house and then you play a game and then like kind of go through and have a good time with that, you know, make commentary. And I don't really have access to much of that now. I haven't for a long time. So streaming is kind of a substitute for that. And it could be kind of fun for that anyway. And some games I think might lend themselves better to streaming in that way. So that's kind of what I use it for. And at least some of my audience likes watching that. I'm with you in that. I'm in the camp that it's hard for me to really kind of get into it, but this could be like a generation gap thing too, where if I was a little younger, I might be more into streaming. Whereas I like the kind of like more polished experience for games or people making videos. Like even the clips I've shown in the other videos for Path of Exile, I don't regularly watch those streamers. I just, every once in a while, I might stumble onto a highlight of those, and then some of the highlights can be really funny. Yeah, like the Quinn69 guy. Like, he has a lot of good highlights. I first found out about him because I had sort of a, what was it, I guess you'd call this a guilty pleasure of watching all the reactions to the Diablo Immortal announcement, of the mobile game, because I don't know, I like seeing the shock from everybody. And I felt like he had the best. His was the best for that, the Quinn69. It felt the most genuine. It felt like raw, unfiltered emotion is what his felt like. So, yeah, I also did that when, actually it was after the fact. I was listening to some podcast from, again, this is sort of like a sick pleasure here, for when Modern Warfare 2 announced that they were no longer going to allow private servers. And I was going around listening to people that were like diehards into this game. It's not because I'm happy this is happening to them, but it's like, it's almost a little cathartic, because you know how much like games being destroyed bugs me? Well, this is kind of like their game being destroyed. So like hearing the reactions of shock from this, I guess what I liked about that is it makes me feel like I'm not alone on this, you know? There's, or yeah, for the bad writing for more recently for World of Warcraft, I was reading through the comments reacting to that. Man, there's a lot of really good burns in the comments section to it's like some Sylvanas finale and the latest expansion of World of Warcraft. Yeah, if you want a good time, if you like that sort of thing, you can. But yeah, back to streaming. Honestly, I'm with you in that I kind of prefer like well-crafted videos as streaming, and I don't quite get the. I mean, I guess this is sort of a substitute towards TV watching. You know, it's like you don't have to change the channel. The person you like's gonna keep doing it. Whereas I'm more aware of my finite time, so I try to aim for either the good stuff or stuff I suspect could be good. And I feel like, something that's been edited and kind of put together is probably going to be a better experience for me. Um, and I had a thought, but oh yeah, but I don't blame a lot of people who go that route because, boy, YouTube, they're practically begging you to stop making videos and just start streaming all the time with their algorithm. I mean, they're like, I wouldn't have made it if I hadn't made that Begathon video when I did. And yeah, I, I need to catch up on thanking people. So if you donated, you're going to get some emails probably relatively soon. I mean, from me. I need to catch up on other emails too. But uh, thanks again for everyone who has donated because again, I will take the I will take the hive mind as my boss any day over YouTube or just some corporate algorithm. So yeah, the hive mind is a much more we have the same goals, We both want good videos. So we're aligned in that sense. Maybe my technique could be better, or maybe I dropped the ball on one video, or another one's taking too long, that sort of thing. See, those are problems we can work with, but but we both want the same thing. We both want a good video for you to watch and have a good experience. Yeah, speaking of which, the next game dungeon, I think it's going to be a pretty good one, but it is kind of spiraling out of control, so it might be a longer one. I, I don't know exactly how long yet. I'll decide what I want to cut or not. It's gonna have if you like the Chosen one or the Requital one, it's definitely gonna be in that ballpark. So it's gonna be another RPG one that's kind of off the beaten path, and there are reasons it ended up being off the beaten path. So there's the see, I gotta watch myself because this is one game I played some of, but I never finished. So this time, like, no, I gotta finish it for Game Dungeon. And from what I remember like, yeah, I'll talk about these things, but I could probably skip a lot of that. But once I'm really going through there and paying attention, I'm thinking, why did they do this? Why, what's happening? Like, this was in the game? Why? So it's like a whole lot of stuff I forgot about becomes worthy for Game Dungeons. So yeah, I don't blame people for going that because financially that's what everything is incentivizing people to do. YouTube does not want anything less than like a full production crew spitting out videos. If you're less than that, they want you streaming, basically, from my understanding of it is for the monetary compensation. But I'm not really looking to get rich. I just want to kind of survive and hopefully have long-term survival, which unfortunately can take. In the past, that would have just meant saving money. In our current future, I'm not sure what that means, but having extra money certainly won't hurt. So I'd rather make good videos. So I'm probably not going to go down the streaming route too much. This is just sort of I've been putting it off. Streaming's fun, but that's time it takes away from the main videos. So that's how it goes for me. I don't know how the people do it that just stream all the time and put out like full high quality videos. Maybe I'll unlock that secret eventually. Okay, hey, because of how my brain works, I mentioned unlocking secrets and, my email. Okay, I'm gonna make a big detour here. This is something I've been thinking about for a while. I think I know the secret to happiness. I just don't know how to get there. So maybe, and this is difficult searching for this online because there's so much of the not what I'm looking for. okay, I think the secret of happiness, for at least for me and probably a lot of other people, is like just feeling really kind of grateful and happy to be alive, you know? Because I'm thinking, like, let's say you served a prison sentence and then you get out. That day that you get out, that's probably gonna be one of the best of your life. Because you're gonna be so happy to be out of prison, having these experiences that you missed, you know? So, uh, like, or just maybe a really repressive job that you finally quit and you're trying something else. That's going to be a great day that you've done that because you're finally free of like this kind of burden. Well, so what's a life sentence? Well, then you're going to have to go to some next level enlightenment then. I imagine if you're asking about life sentences, you're not in the chat. Yeah, you're going to need you're going to need deeper philosophy for that. And hopefully there's something in the prison library then if you have a life sentence. Um, oh yeah, somebody's mentioning this meme. Bad times create strong men create good times. No, you see, I've seen that meme before, but I've seen no. There's kind of a missing step there. It's like I think the missing step is bad times. Oh shoot, what was it? The strong create. It's like weak men create bad times. Bad times. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create war and devastate everything. Survivors create good times. That was the missing step. Because if you look at history, it doesn't usually go like that. Like when it's not like, I mean, it's like the people, I mean, there's an abstract of like what's strong or not. I mean, there's a difference between someone who projects strength versus someone who actually has, well, great book on this, which I haven't finished because it's enormous. I think it's one of the best-selling books in Japan, Musashi. This is about this guy who was a soldier in these wars, and he's a thug, like to start off. Like, I mean, and he ends up getting into a lot of trouble. And I think like I might be remembering the details wrong, but I think like the local lord kind of sees some potential in him. So instead of like executing him or throwing a dozen, he basically ends up locking him in a tower where all he has is basically great works of literature to read. So he can learn about philosophy. And I think he might get some training then. Also, I'm sure this is like an old archetype where you take this like real wild person. I think, what was it? The movie The Shadow had this same concept too, where you're basically taking this wild kind of brute and you're kind of turning them into more of like an enlightened warrior thing where he spends basically years locked up, but he's using that time to kind of learn about different concepts because he's forced to, and once he comes out of it, he's like a Jedi master. He's no longer seeking conflict and like to hurt others. He's basically pursuing the perfection of mastery of like the sword and the technique. And he comes into conflicts along the way when he tries to step aside from them, but he's basically he basically turns into Obi-Wan essentially. So I feel like if you're talking about strength, the person, even though, he could be a strong guy and kill a bunch of people, like mentally, he's not a strong person at the beginning of it. Whereas once he comes out of that, he is like stronger than anyone anyway. So, when you talk about like strong men, what exactly does that mean? It's, there's, I don't know. That was a side thing, but okay. But yeah, okay, so my question for people who maybe have thought about this is, I'm pretty sure that the secret is to like basically kind of, at least for me, it probably depends on your personality. I think the secret for me for feeling happy is just to basically just, we tend to naturally acclimate to our environments. Although I'm noticing, not all of them though. So we kind of so things we think are amazing and wonderful, we kind of get used to. So the question is, how do you mentally train yourself to kind of keep remembering how great something is? You know, I mean, well, actually, coming back from a hike, I do appreciate things like showers or food, you know, and actually in this apartment, I am constantly reminded, even with the problems this place has, how much more I like this apartment over my last apartment. Because there was the last one had so many issues. But I'm thinking you can take that to a deeper level, but that probably takes some philosophy or, you know, train maybe some Buddhist monks have like some training for this and like how to think to get there. So I'm trying to think of I'm trying to find shortcuts to this way of thinking that don't involve, you know, like becoming like a Buddhist monk for 10 years or something like that. But so I figure for me, maybe the way is to like just kind of keep imagine. Well, actually, I kind of do appreciate that about prison movies. Like anytime I see a prison movie, like afterwards, I'm like really glad I'm not in prison. So, but yeah, I think that's the secret of happiness for me, at least, and a lot of people. So I don't know how to get there exactly. And so if anybody has tips on that, feel free to email me. Like I can imagine like this long kind of deconstructed steps and ways of thinking about it. Because the thing is, you look this up online and you're gonna find a lot of self-help crap that's not particularly enlightened, you know. It's the equivalent of like motivational posters or something like that. Whereas I want like an actual process for it. So Ross is appreciating basic human rights. What? I'm curious how the chat got to that, but someone saying the Vulcan philosophy of total objectivity and repression of emotion could work. No, not for me. I don't think though. Some people are going to have different paths to enlightenment that work for them, but I don't think that's the way to go for me. I mean, I love the fascination, like I mentioned earlier, going off into the unknown. I love that from a game or a movie. So of course, I don't think stoicism's the answer for me. I think it's just being happy. What was it? Yeah, I think that's a quote from Scarface. Like every day above ground is a good day. I think that mentality is more the one that would work for me. But no, I'm not against basic human rights. I'm not sure how that came up in the chat. Yeah, by the way, for prisons, I'm just using that as an example. My attitude on prison is like I'm not really big on like my goal with prisons wouldn't be like the punitive aspect on that. It's about let's contain the problem. So if you're a menace to society, we need to make sure that you're not going to be a menace to society. So that means containing you somewhere. If it's not the most punitive experience possible, fine. We've contained the problem. Or if it's something lesser, like let's say theft, you know, where it's not such a thing. Well, then it's the equivalent of like a timeout. Like, yeah, let's have some time to think about what you're doing. You know, just having. I think studies have shown like the God, I can never say this word. Recidivism. Like rate the odds that you repeat crimes is actually a lot lower when you don't treat people like animals. That said, there are some people who are friggin' monsters and they need to be contained. But the point is, you don't have to have like the worst conditions possible with them. It's just you got to make sure society is safe from them. You know, I'm not necessarily a believer everyone can be redeemed. Some people, their brains are broken. They're gonna do horrible things to people if they have the chance. Okay, fine. Well, that doesn't mean they can't, you know, exercise more, or play ping pong, or read books or something, you know, or, you know, it's, or, you know, so you get what I'm saying. I mean, people have different outlooks on that with thing. I'm more the practical element of it. Like, some people really want like an eye for an eye, and they want them to be punished and be miserable. I mean, I figure if you're going to prison already, you're probably already not going to be having a great time. So it's like things that alleviate that and are humane, I'm all for. But I'm also for, you get into crazy dynamics too when sometimes, let's say you are a law-abiding citizen, but you're really in poverty. Maybe you don't want to be hearing about how prisoners should be treated better when things are horrible for you. So I get that. I want kind of everybody to be okay, you know? But like I said, my politics tend to drift into utopia and sci-fi stuff pretty rapidly, so. Okay, I should move on to other questions. Let's see. Any website updates planned? Maybe adding Twitter posts to the website feed. No, but that's a good idea. Although there was a mistake that got added to the website where some of the formatting. Yeah, see, it's still off. I got to talk to the. It used to be the date was on the right side, and now it's bunched together with the title. I'm gonna have to email the guy talking about that. Oh God, it hasn't been doing the echo voice, has it? I think because I realized I forgot to mute a tab where I had the Twitch preview up. Yeah, again, every time if there's ever a major problem with the broadcasting, I want you to spam me relentlessly with capital letter stuff until it gets solved. So thankfully that didn't happen, but you know, if that ever does happen, I'll be like, oh, the entire chat's saying this is wrong. I don't want to go for an hour with an awful setting. So, I have gotten help. The games list has gotten updated on the website, so there's a new batch of new games on there that I think look promising. But let's see. What is your favorite equalizer setting? I haven't really messed with it much in a long time. I mean, I don't want to for when I'm doing editing. I guess for music, I might have to mess with things some more, but I just haven't had time to look at it. I have these are the headphones I have, the DT 770 Pro 80 ohm ones. Those are, man, those have good build. Well, no, part of them don't because they broke and I had to get 3D printed parts, but the actual design of how the components are laid out is good because I remember I had Sennheisers in the past and they were nice, but they snapped after like a year or two. Like the band just friggin' snapped on me. I think those were the HD 280s that I had. They sounded great, but whereas these have a more, like you can bend the band and everything, so, and you're not going to put any pressure on it because it's like a metal band of wire. It's a metal band there, so you're not going to break it. And they have screws so you can kind of service the parts. So I've had these a long time now. But I haven't felt the need to equalize much, but I remember messing with that in the past. Maybe I'll mess with it in the future. But I kind of want to keep things absolutely normal for doing the editing on the videos, so I'm not balancing it the wrong way. Status update on the movie. They want to know, they're asking if I'm in pre-production. Has any voice been completed? Has any animation been done? Yes, some animation, but it is in pre-production, though that's not as bad as it sounds because I remember this is way back, geez, might have been like 15 years ago. Somebody was asking about Civil Protection. This is another machinima maker. And they kind of made just music video stuff. And they saw what I was doing with Civil Protection. And they're like, good God. So like 99% of what you do is pre-production. So it's like, yeah, in a way it is. So by the time I'm ready for voice, but by the time I'm going to have a video announcing auditions for the voice stuff. I have a plan for that. So you won't miss it. And by the time of that stage, I'm very happy with basically everything should be nailed down as far as our analogy that came to mind is this will be like the train track has been laid down at that point, and we just have to make the train go at that point. I'm still constructing the train track. So I'm going to put a hell of a lot more time into this next year. So that's the plan right now. And it may come at the cost of some videos, but that's why I kind of want to do a surge for the bottom remainder of this year. So I know it gets old hearing me talk about it, but I will deliver on it. So, okay. Oh yeah, this wasn't a question. They're saying, a problem I see with a lot of games, both cooperative and competitive, is the over-reliance on a meta. Where in order to best play a game, you're forced to rely on specific tactics and or equipment. Look at any game where a new weapon gets released and it's deemed as the best for the meta, and you'll see videos and guides on how to get the thing as quickly as possible. And they were saying, yeah, what are your opinions on this? I think it really depends on the game and like how it's constructed. Because I was thinking, like, for some games, I don't really have that issue. A lot of the games I play, it's not really that issue because, what's the best weapon in something like Quake 3 or Unreal Tournament? It's not going to be the best in all situations, you know? Because I was thinking, like some are going to be better at a distance, some are going to be better for like kind of more claustrophobic areas. Others, there's a few dimensions to this, like okay, I'm taking Quake 3 as an example. Actually, I first played Quake 3 online with, see, somebody's saying shock rifle always. Okay, what if somebody's chasing you in a winding staircase and you want to attack them? I wouldn't want the shock rifle. I'd want the bio gun in Unreal Tournament. You know, so you can't even see them, but they're on your tail. You know, or that's the situation that weapon would be better for. But like, yeah, so I played a lot of Quake 3 on a 56K modem. So 400 millisecond ping was not uncommon for me. That made some weapons almost useless for me. So I was not using the railgun. I was not using the plasma gun was very not good for that either. Same, unless you were just right up next to somebody. Whereas the rocket launcher was a lot better because I could see somebody running to the left and I know they're off to the left. So I'm not even gonna aim at them. I'm gonna aim where I think they're going to be and then shoot the rocket launcher there. And it would work out, well, Ross, shock rifle is great for countering that tool. Not if you're being chased up a winding staircase. You can't even see the player, you know. But even in Quake 3, like the railgun is good for like long distance stuff. But let's say you hear a noise and you think a player might be coming out of a hallway off to the left, but they're not there yet. Well, then you might just want to blind fire a rocket right over there. So if they do come out, they have a rocket ready for them. And you might miss or bunk, it might be a direct hit. So it's like these weapons behave very differently. Or what's another one? But even for games where they're like more similar, you can, well, actually I was thinking in PlanetSide 2, I don't remember there being like you should always get this gun. A lot of the guns felt like they're pretty lethal. It's just that for some situations, different classes of weapons might be better. And even if you didn't get that exact weapon, the differences were kind of subtle that it wasn't a big deal if you had a different one. But for some situations, you'd want like a different class of weapon. Like if I wanted to bring down a vehicle, I wouldn't want like a submachine gun or something like that. I'd want explosives or rocket launchers, something similar. But I'm not going to be too picky which rocket launcher I'm using, you know? Another thing I brought up is sometimes there is what you're talking about, but it's really not for most players. Like, cause I'm thinking, like, let's say, like for something like Warcraft 3, that's a strategy game. I'm not aware of an obvious best course of action to do for that game. I mean, like, depending on your opponent, you might want to go what they're doing. If you know what they're doing, like if they like flyers a whole lot, yeah, you're going to want a whole lot of anti-air or something like. But let's say they have a kind of a mixed thing. Well, then you might want to have a mix of things. But let's say there is a meta. There might be. I have no idea. There is a meta in Warcraft 3 where if you're really, really good, then you probably want to be playing as humans or something and be doing magic or something like that. But let's say you're not really, really good. You're just all right. Well, then doing the top tier tactic might not make the most sense for you because your skill level just isn't there to take advantage of that. And you're going to be better if you have something that maybe you don't need to be as good at micromanagement to pull off. And it's more like based off of auras or something like that, or just kind of like having your units in the right place at the right time, that sort of thing. So it's some things can just kind of adjust to your style better. Whereas like the 0.1% of players that are just gods at the game, yeah, they might have meta problems, but that's not really going to be a problem for probably most people playing the game. So it's just defining meta. I think meta in this case means that like it's a game that has a whole lot of mechanics to it or aspects, but you find that like certain routes tend to maximize like your effectiveness as a player, and that can actually be quite narrow, is my understanding of it. But yeah, I was thinking like if that's a big problem in the game, it could mean the gameplay itself is a little more one-dimensional, where if it's just about how much damage you do, well, then that's, yeah, there's only so much you can maneuver on that. But even then, you could have some games, like I mentioned in Strife, I love weapons that are kind of sloppy and not very accurate to use, and dangerous, but they do a lot of damage. I like the idea of the most powerful weapons being something that's like really kind of hard to control. So that's kind of balancing it in itself, where like you can't safely use this weapon in all situations. Like, you know, okay, if there's like a lot of open area, or like I can just take cover afterwards, fine. But you can limit things like with like ammo for a weapon, or how long you can use it before it overheats, or accuracy. Like maybe the most accurate weapons aren't, maybe they just don't do as much damage, you know, let's see, there's some other things you can do. But it depends on the type of game too. If it's not a first-person shooter, it's gonna be different. Like with Path of Exile, I think they had some of that. I think they actually might have broken that up quite a bit in the latest update. But I mentioned before how like almost if you wanted to maximize your damage, you had to time things with these flasks in the past, and I hated that. I just didn't want to do that. So I would try to find the best methods that didn't require me having to time your flasks. Yeah, see, that could be another thing, is maybe you do a ridiculous amount of damage, but it requires on like this timer combo to pull off, so you have to get this one mechanic going, then another mechanic going, and another mechanic going, and then you're a god, but you're only that way for like 10 seconds. And if you just don't want to maintain that or have the skill level to pull it off, well, then you might want to try something else that just gives you more like better average damage if you can't pull off that special 10-second combo out of a span of like every 5 minutes or something, that'll be more reliable for you. But yeah, I guess you got to mix up the gameplay more. And unfortunately, that's the developer's job, not the player's job, really. If it's just a pure replacement, whereas this gun is better in every single way, then yeah, then the other gun is just going to be a stepping stone. Like, actually, I was thinking in Supreme Commander, I mean, if I was going to nitpick flaws about it, once you've, the tier 1 and some of the tier 2 units, once you've gone through them, you kind of don't need them again. I mean, at least that was my experience playing it. Maybe there's use for them. So but at the same time, you do kind of want that feeling that you're building to something better. I guess what you could do with that is maybe have some upgrade that makes your tier 1 units relevant again, but it takes a while to build up to that upgrade. And even then, your tier 3 units could have some special abilities the tier 1s don't, but the tier 1s aren't useless anymore, or something like that. I don't know. I mean, basically, if you just everybody flows the exact same way, then that means the gameplay is a little too one-dimensional. Like, and you need ways to break it up more, I guess, either with weapons or strategy, tactics, or the maps, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I would need to look at like the game they're referring to somebody has a good quote. The Black Mage in Final Fantasy XIV. I feel like a god, but I'm going to go insane from keeping track of my skill rotation. Yeah, I hate that crap. I hate having to deal with the skill rotations. I don't mind having to put a lot of thought into what I'm doing for my character, but it's like once I have my methods down, I kind of just want to keep it simpler for that. So if I have to like reevaluate my entire strategy, I'm fine with that. But like I don't like having like timers and pulling this off with this combo but even then you kind of want to reward the players that can pull off all that stuff, but you don't want to make the players who want something simpler irrelevant, you know? Well, that was one of the things I loved about Team Fortress Classic is that on the attack and defend mode is that that was a great example of the meta stuff where, your resistance, if you're on offense, your resistance is so high, like you just need sheer brute force to punch through certain portions of it. And then once you can get a foothold, then like the more advanced players can go and be a spy and try to infiltrate the behind enemy lines, or they can pull off, maybe a soldier or a demo man pull off these elaborate jumping maneuvers, or I've even seen offensive engineers where you can kind of try to shore up certain points of your medic, where you realize that if you can keep players in the game at this choke point, then that's going to push ahead your whole team. Whereas if you just want to jump in and like shoot the enemy team, that's still helping, and that's still a very valued role. Whereas like the people who are kind of seeing the grand strategy of the game realize that, like in Fortress Forever, they might have done away with it, but sometimes putting a jump pad at certain points would be just devastating for the enemy team. In fact, I think it kind of messed up the balance. But in Team Fortress Classic, like having. Even if you're like an offensive player, you realize that, okay, we're getting killed a lot, but 40% of the kills are from this sentry gun or from this guy, this demo man. So I need to take him out. If I do that, then we're going to push forward. So it's like you're seeing the bigger picture and kind of work with that, and you're kind of playing your own metagame that way. And that helps the team. But if you just want to run and just shoot things, then that's great. So yeah, that's why I say it's really game specific, I think, some of these questions. But yeah, there's ways to do it. Okay, I should keep moving on. I spent a while on that one. Let's see. How do the both of you feel about living in Poland in the long run? Poland is basically the cauldron of Europe. Since the energy production relies on coal, air pollution is quite bad within the cities. We discussed alternative locations. It's come up every once in a while. Yeah, the pollution, I've said it before, but it's not just that they use coal. That's not good. I mean, that's bad in a lot of ways environmentally, but the big problem in my eyes, like if it was just coal power plants, the air would be a lot better. The big problem, is that it's every individual home burning unfiltered coal or maybe cheap stuff on top of all that. So, I mean, at least the plants can have some filters on the coal, whereas if you have like 1,000 homes around a city or more burning coal individually, just spewing that out, that's just a bomb as far as air quality goes. But yeah, some political stuff has bothered my wife about it, that she's, every once in a while, she'll mention that she's worried she'll have to leave Poland at some point. My general attitude on it is, I told her I'm fine with this, but I have two demands. My two demands are, I want to be reasonably close to forest because I really missed that when I didn't have it, and just ballpark similar cost of living. So if we have to flee, I'm probably more adaptable than she is to places. So I'm kind of leaving that in her hands if she ever feels like she needs to move. I mean, that's why, I came to Poland specifically to be with her. But I mean, before that, I was toying with the idea of moving to Romania. Actually, some fan was inviting me to, come see her, come see it. You might like it. And it's like, well, at that point, all my fans in USA had kind of just moved off somewhere. So I didn't have much tying me down. So I was kind of toying with the idea. But yeah, so I'm saying they did not know Poland had individual household coal furnaces. Thousands, maybe millions. I don't know. So yeah, I like I prefer a colder climate, but I mean, so yeah, those are my two demands. Similar cost of living, because I'd have to be able to afford wherever I went. And I can at least afford things here. And, or so far, I'm seeing inflation start to creep in lately, but, and just, I do miss not having forests. So that would, and of course I could live places without that, but I highly prefer having forest somewhere. So if I have those two things, I can live in a lot of places. But she has some family here too, but she hasn't seen a lot of them lately because of the pandemic, and she absolutely wants to play it safe with that. So, all right. Whoa, got dizzy for a second. Okay, let's see. What do you think of the recent trend of gaming websites shutting down their forums and trying to use Discord as a replacement? They're saying, personally, I think it's a terrible idea. Can't get our. I wasn't aware that was a trend. Let's hope nobody says anything of importance or value in there. I guess, like if it's some instructions to fix a bug for the game, yeah, I'd really prefer to have that on a forum, or I guess like really funny stuff or stories. Much rather have a way to reference that in the future. So yeah, I mean, if it's just meant as like a replacement for if it's just meant as like a chat room, then fine. But if you want real information on the game that people are gonna want maybe years from now, or again, just interesting stuff. Again, there's no time limit when in the birthday video about MMO stories, there's no time limit on that. If it's an old MMO story that's really funny or fascinating to read about, sure. I mean, there's no. So I mean, and for me with old games, sometimes I really do want to find old game information that's relevant for me. So yeah, I hope all the important stuff stays in forums, or else some way to find it in the future. But yeah. If you found out you were living in a false reality like the Matrix and you were the only person experiencing it, would you want to find the truth beyond the false reality? Or would you rather be the master of your false reality and shape it to your will? It kind of depends on whichever one's better. Like if I'm in a false reality, but then reality is still pretty good, then I guess I'd want to go to the real world. But if the reality is just this burned out husk, then yeah, I might want to stick in the false reality as much as I can. I mean, I think I would be concerned about my body atrophying, you know, if I'm just lying there like a vegetable. But let's say there's some technology that takes care of that and means I'll be able to live a similar life of similar length either way, then yeah, I guess whichever had the cooler reality. I mean, I'm not really seeking to be like the master of any specific reality. I mean, yeah, I might want to shape things if I know I have that capability to something more interesting, but maybe a different reality is naturally more interesting than what I was even thinking about. So like, oh, cool, I'll take that. So yeah, just whichever one seems cooler, I think. Are there any scary movies, games you're looking to give a shot October? Yeah, I mean, every year I hope to get to stuff, and usually I've run out of time. But uh, well, actually, if the chat has any movie recommendations, feel free to throw some at me. I think there was one I wanted. I think it was called The Witch. Actually, I might be able to find it right now. Let's see. There's one I started watching. It's pretty good. I never finished it, and that was like over a year ago. So I need to go back and finish it. Uh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think one was just called The Witch. And uh, one I started watching like the first 5 minutes of, and I thought this has a pretty good vibe. Maybe maybe I should save for Halloween. Gretel and Hansel. The movie may or may not be good. I don't know, but it was starting off with a good vibe. So, uh, okay, someone's saying The Witch is great. Dude Bro Party Massacre. Okay, I'm very picky with horror comedies, but if it's yeah, the horror kinds of horror movies I like are horror adventure, which is kind of rare. Like I consider a lot of the Night of the Living Dead or Day of the Dead, kind of like that, Dawn of the Dead, sort of a horror adventure, um, or ones that just kind of scare the hell out of you, like the really scary ones. I'm not really big into most ghost story movies or slashers. I mean, unless they're just exceptionally good, those kind of, I feel like I've kind of seen it before. Okay, somebody's saying Werewolves Within, pretty recent. Okay, I can look into that. Bonus of Melania Vintra being insanely attractive. I don't know who that is. Let's see. Usually the people I find most attractive can be like have more of a weirder look. I've seen her before. Yeah, she looks pretty. Though that really doesn't factor into whether I'll watch a movie or not. Like it's, I 10 times care more about the performance and writing than like how they look. So, let's see. Hereditary. I saw that one. That it was like okay for me. I've gotten very picky. Okay, Killing of the Sacred Deer. Did I see that? I think I'm gonna have to start making a list of the movies I've seen, just because I'll remember the movie, but I won't remember the title at all. Oh wait, I think I did see Killing of the Sacred Deer. Yeah, that one wasn't. Jeez. Yeah, I like the scary movies more than anything, or thrilling kind of stuff more. I think that it wasn't that kind of movie. Let's see. Oh well, I'll probably try to watch the new season of Castlevania. I think Agda said they're up to 4. I've seen up to 3, so I'll probably watch that. Let's see for games. What I have is I'll probably try to play the Evil. I might run out of time for all of these, so I want to check out the Evil Within. That's one I've been meaning to play for a while. I could almost just pick something. You know what? I almost want to just go through my personal game library here and just. I use Launchbox to organize it. I almost want to just pick the horror genre, and I can pick ones at random God, there's so many on here. Okay, so here, what's the random option? It's a button to click on at random. I forget how to do it though. Select random. Okay, Control Alt Q. What? Oh shoot! No, I can't do that right now. Okay, I can't do that because Control Alt Q I mapped as the hotkey to restart Explorer because that screws up so often on Windows 10 for me when doing VR that or using the object Nexus dock that I needed a hotkey for it, that I needed to reboot the Explorer shell so often that it's the same hotkey. So I accidentally just rebooted. I don't reboot Windows, just the Explorer shell. It only takes a few seconds. It shouldn't have affected anything in the chat. So I'll have to remap that maybe. But yeah, I figure I should get to some of the more well-known ones. I might try to play Soma. I haven't played that yet. Resident Evil 0. I haven't played that. I actually haven't played the Resident Evil remake, though I remember the original Resident Evil pretty well, so I might want to wait till my memory's just even blurrier before I try and do the remake. And I mean, this came out like a long time ago, but I still haven't played it. I guess there's Code Veronica. I'm not sure if I really want to go through 5 or 6. And 7 might be a little too modern for me to want to test to see if I can run it at full speed. I don't know. Let's see. So yeah, if you're feeling the hurt from the video card and computer supply crunch, I plan to have solidarity with you for sticking to games that you can easily run at 60 frames a second on probably mid-tier hardware. So okay, somebody says 5 and 6 aren't scary at all. So yeah, I'll probably. I'm not huge on top-down games, but a lot of people have recommended Darkwood, so maybe I'll look into that. Well, I'll be doing Sunless Sea. I'll be doing Sunless Sea. So let's see. Yeah, Sunless Sea is, again, I'm not huge on, for some reason my brain doesn't mesh quite as well with like top-down games, but thematically, Sunless Sea seems like exactly the sort of thing I want in terms of the theme that like I feel like I have to. So, you know. I tried some of Fear too. It didn't strike me as that scary, but maybe I could try more of that. But yeah. Someone's saying Tormented Souls. I don't even know that one. That could be on my games list for all I know. Oh, that came out very recently. Okay. Okay, yeah, I hadn't heard of this one. Yeah, it looks like it could be kind of. It's weird. The characters has almost a. This is weird because I'm getting like these Silent Hill or Resident Evil vibes to the presentation, but then the character has this almost cartoon face. So it's like, wait, what? and when and it does not look like a cartoon. I mean, this looks like kind of a modern Silent Hill or Resident Evil game. So yeah, I guess I never played. Maybe I kind of gave up on the gameplay, but maybe you could watch the playthrough of was it Silent Hill 4. I heard a lot of people say Silent Hill Homecoming wasn't that good, so maybe you could try it. Any interest in Phasmophobia? Not really. I'm not really into ghost games or movies. I'm just into. If I was gonna play a ghost game, it would probably be Darkfall, because I played some of that in the past and I thought it was having reasonably good mood building. So maybe I'll go follow through with it. That's an old one. Yeah, it's true. There's probably some old horror games I haven't played, but I'm probably not. I'll probably be lucky to even played what I listed, because I still have a lot to do on the videos. So okay, so but yeah, Let's see. Yeah, okay. So I should keep. Oh yeah, well that's the other thing. I I thankfully I'm spoiled for choice now in Castlevania games because when I did my big abandonware spree, there were several fan-made Castlevania games that I backed up to, and there were like dozens of them. Now they're probably not all great, but I kind of want to go through them and see how they are. So for sure I'll have to pick out one of those. And earlier I streamed Lacard Chronicles 2. I still need to play the Lacard Chronicles. So I might try to finish Haunted Castle 3. I don't know. Or I could. No, I kind of gave it. No, I really gave it my best shot for Haunted Castle 2 in the game legend. So might have to move on. Yeah, if you haven't played it, like Card Chronicles 2 is fantastic. So. Okay, I should get some more questions. And I lost my spot. Yeah, here we go. Oh, wait. I've been putting off playing several horror games so you could play them in VR. See, now I'm rethinking that because with VR, I kind of don't want to deal with too taxing gameplay. Like if there's careful stuff I have to pull off, then it just doesn't feel good having to do that while kind of maintaining my equilibrium inside a VR environment. So like when I've been playing VR games, I've been playing on easy mode or with cheats or something so that my brain doesn't have to handle too many things at once. Because it's not that I can't, but then it's not enjoyable. So if it's a hard horror game, I may actually want to know what I'm getting into. So I might want to rethink that and just play the games normally first, then go back in it and kind of see some of the environments in VR where I'll know what's coming. It's not that I don't want the scares, it's that like I don't want the tricky gameplay surprises, you know. Has your diet improved since you married? I may take this as a cue to start skipping some of the questions, but not really. I mean, it would, it's almost, it might have gone downhill a little bit because it can be tricky with me having to like plan out meals because she may not want me saying this, but Magda can sort of have a bad habit of forgetting to eat. And then if she does that, she can kind of panic. So I have to be almost aggressive about making sure we're going to have food at certain times. And I don't really like cooking that much. So it can we can sometimes order more than we should, or which maybe isn't the healthiest thing to do. But I think we're slowly getting it under control, or just coming up with meal plans that one of us can handle. Let's see. If you were an evil villain with billions and a fully stat-based layer, your choice in design, how would you set out to conquer the world? I mean, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I mean, if you just, I mean, this gave me a few different thoughts. Conquering the world isn't really one of my goals, so I had to stop and think about this. I mean, it's not even one of my goals really. In like let's say I had unlimited power. I would want certain problems solved. That's about it. As far as world power, because I think the modern military could probably reduce you to rubble if you tried to have any sort of direct assault for taking over the world. So you probably want something much more covert. Like you wouldn't want the threat easily tied back to you. And you could have something that could kill a lot of people, but if you can't tie it back to you, then that's not really, I mean, yeah, you could conquer the world and as far as wiping everybody else out, but most villains aren't really after, well, some are, I guess. And in that case, you'd probably want a biological weapon or some sort of extremely dangerous disease. to be released that you have the antidote for and that you share with your crew, but you know it isn't made available to everybody else unless you don't even you wouldn't even want to come out and say your demands are met, because as soon as you do that, all the world's governments are going to be doing covert operations to try and pull some James Bond or special forces stuff to bring you down, because they need to. And you're not going to win. You're not going to win if you're holding the whole world hostage like that, and they know where you are. So the way you'd have to do this more, the way to conquer the world is to have something that everybody really wants and needs, and that is available, but they can only come through you for whatever reason. So you kind of want a monopoly situation on something. And that got me thinking, the last time I remember thinking like, oh wow, this is some real evil genius stuff, was with Jeff Bezos. You might have heard a while back that he was having like this sort of competition among like major cities across the US as to where he would house his second Amazon headquarters. And all these cities were like coming out trying to give him like tax breaks or like or other benefits that, like, you know, like a workforce that's ready for him, that's like maybe trained in a certain area. Basically, they were trying to do everything they could, bending over backwards to get him to come there because it meant more jobs, even though these probably aren't going to be good jobs. I think a lot of them weren't looking at the big picture. But what it came out at the end was that it looked like he had a plan all along where it was going to be, and this was all just a giant ruse. And the ruse was to get access to all this inside information about the long-term planning projections of the city. Like if there were infrastructure projects planned, like with other companies that weren't public, they let Amazon in on, like the mayors or the city councils let Amazon in on that as a way to kind of sweeten the deal for, yeah, you should come here because we're going to build like a new railway station or something like that. Or we're going to build a new sports stadium, which would bring more traffic to this area. So what ended up happening was Amazon just got like countless information on like the infrastructure plans, business plans, demographics plans or shifts they just got a complete treasure trove of information of like almost all the major cities across the US in doing this. And the whole thing looks like it was just a ruse to get that. And I was thinking, wow, that is almost like a low-level James Bond villain level stuff where, you know, where he really did kind of pull one over on like the entire United States. I'm thinking, wow, that is some, and that information, who knows? That could be worth billions of dollars. Like if you were a competing firm against Amazon for something, knowing like exactly where the demographics are going and like what business plans are and like what industries are moving in or moving out. Depending on what kind of business you're running, that could be really valuable information. And a lot of it was private, and they just kind of let Amazon in on that because of that ruse. I'm thinking, so yeah, you'd want to do, so yeah, you should, I'd say Jeff Bezos knows what he's doing as far as like evil genius taking over the world stuff, at least. Well, I guess he stepped down as CEO, didn't he? Or stepping down. But yeah, I remember thinking like, wow, that is really up there with as far as like evil genius stuff. And the thing is that only solidifies like their presence too, because even without all that, Amazon has an incredible just size advantage with monopoly presence. Oh, I'll probably mention this on a future video. You know, like when I was mentioning about how Microsoft has a kind of a de facto monopoly on the desktop. You know, every time I don't know where this comes from, but maybe it's people who like to look at things in like black and white terms. And so if you make like a tiny mistake, it just bugs them and they have to correct it. But whenever I mention monopolies, it seems like people come out of the woodwork to mention, no, they don't have a monopoly because they don't literally control 100% of every last part of the industry. Well, that's one definition of monopoly. And I checked, if you look at I think it was like the Sherman Antitrust Act, if you control like 75% or more of the market, it wasn't like an exact number, but that was like generally the spectrum agreed, then you could be considered a monopoly under the Sherman Antitrust Act. Well, under that definition, we have a lot of monopolies today. So if you have a monopoly, that's how you can kind of slowly get towards world domination. If that's what you want, is by having something just invaluable that you can crush your competition with, but you're not so high a threat that the military feels like they either have to do a missile strike on you or send in special forces to come kill you or your people. So that you want to, if you're trying to be an evil genius taking over the world, you want that balance so that you have the power, but your threat does not warrant people obviously thinking, does not warrant governments thinking they have no choice but to stop you in any way possible. So, yeah, I mentioned, yeah, that was the other thing. Well, I already talked about this in the last follow-up episode, how Microsoft, they basically, yeah, that's the way a lot of them do it now, is kind of undermine the government and make it work for your organization. Because the governments have a lot of power, so if that, a lot of companies don't even want to have to deal with all the functions government does. But if they can use their power for their benefit, then that's a big bonus for them. And I mentioned how Microsoft basically undermined the IRS and they basically out-muscled the IRS. That's in that follow-up video. And I was thinking, wow. And they did that by basically forming a coalition with other big corporations. And then they hired lobbyists to just push this issue relentlessly to get them defunded. So to kind of defang them essentially, so that, yeah, the IRS could press charges, but if they don't have the resources to actually enforce it and you have a legal wall to stop people, then they essentially strong-arm the IRS. So that's some evil genius stuff to actually get away with it, Wasn't this a while ago? Well, I think it's still ongoing. Yeah, it started a while ago. I think the case that it led to it is still ongoing. I linked to the article in that video. I forget the name of it, but you can read it. It's a long read, but it's a good one. So yeah, in my eyes, Microsoft proved they were more powerful than the IRS, at least with conflict. Obviously, Microsoft can't force taxes on every single person. However, if you want to use a desktop PC, they've got the majority of the market. So, especially for gaming PCs, then it's like 96% at least or something like that. So, yeah, this is in follow-up. This is the Game Dungeon follow-up number 3. It's for the Lakeside Cabin part. So if you want to scroll, you can just, if you don't want to watch the full thing, just scroll into where you're seeing the pixel art that looks like it takes place in the evening. That's where I'm talking about it. So, okay. But, yeah, I want to say there was some other evil genius thing I was thinking of, but it might have slipped my mind. But yeah, you don't want to be an obvious threat, and you want to undermine enforcement agencies that would come after you. So yeah, you can't be really dangerous, or if you do, you have to be more subtle about it. I don't want to get this too depressing because I can think of some examples of companies that have done really horrendous things, but it's kind of buried. It's a less overt threat than what you see in movies. So. Okay, someone's asking what made me want to begin Freeman's Mind. Real quick, I was getting frustrated with how long Civil Protection was taking to make because animation takes forever. So that was just I was trying to think of something I could put out faster. And because I had a large Half-Life audience already, well, that seemed like a natural pick to experiment with. Okay, they're asking about the ending to Phantasmagoria 2. I said I didn't expect Curtis to be happy, even if he no longer had the psycho vision. Do you think his life might have been... What do you think his life might have been like if after he found out he was an alien replica? Do you think he might have found some comfort in some way with his reality? How would you handle finding out that you were never really human? I think I got the feeling he wasn't going to be happy because Curtis gave this vibe like he's always, like the grass is always greener on the other side. Like he's searching for something. I feel like he's just going to keep searching for something he's never really going to find. This is even without all the alien stuff, just even in his relationships. He's there with Jocelyn, but you can tell his mind's elsewhere, at the end. So I got some people are like that. They're always going to be trying to find themselves. How would I handle finding out I was never really human? That wouldn't bother me too much. I might go public with it just so I could get... My main concern would be I might need other doctors. Like a normal doctor might not work for me. So I would need someone that it's like out in public that I have different anatomy. So I need someone taking their best guess on what's best for me health-wise. There is the risk the government might want to just cut me up or somebody might want to kill me. But if I'm going public, I can maybe get enough resources from all the publicity to kind of protect myself. But I don't know. That'd be kind of a gamble because, there might be a crazy who wants to come kill me if they know I'm an alien. So it might be, so maybe I could ask a friend of mine for sure. I have a friend of mine who knows a lot about pharmaceuticals and some medicine. I have some relatives, so they can maybe ask around to maybe, that's probably what I'd do. I probably wouldn't want to go public because the risk could be too high. But I could ask some friends or family that I trust, and they'd be all right that knowing that I'm an alien, that they could probably hook me up with a doctor who would be kind of cool with, who would believe the situation and then treat that. So, Earth belongs to Earthlings. So. It wouldn't bother me on like a philosophical level. Just be like, okay, well, I still have my own goals. This doesn't really get in the way of that too much. So, let's see. Okay, I'm going to start skipping some more questions. They're asking what's my favorite lesser holiday, like Arbor Day, National Donut Day. I have too many mixed feelings about the Donut Day here. President's Day. I would say 4th of July because you have fireworks, but I don't really get much of that here. But that might not be considered a lesser holiday, especially if you're in the U.S. I'm trying to think of what's the most... Whatever's the most festive, I like festivities, so... A lot of the lesser days don't really have as much in the way of festivity. Maybe St. Patrick's. That one might be the most festive I can think of offhand. That's not like a major holiday like Christmas, or Halloween, or Thanksgiving. St. Patrick's, you can still have people dressing up or. Well, I don't drink, so that part doesn't do much for me, but. You know what? Part of me really likes having things dressed up thematically at different parts of the year. So I really get sick of Christmas music, but beyond that, I like okay, now let's have lots of wintry themes. And if we just had another, there's a holiday in Poland where kids, adults too, if they want to, try to get people wet so they can go out with super. So it's basically, so think of it like the purge with super soakers. So you were not safe from getting hosed or hit with a super soaker or bucket of water, even for some people on that holiday. I like that. I think that's great. I think there should be more things like that. So you're at risk if you go out during that time of getting wet. I forget when it is. Yeah, that's probably the best answer. I think I love having more wacky holidays like that the public in general accepts. Things to break up the monotony of life. They're saying with more and more famous game developers gradually deteriorating or declining over time. Is there any studio that you most personally disappointed to you, seeing how far they've fallen? Not really, because I almost don't even notice who the studio is or who made it when I play a game. When I play games, I like to just go in, experience the game, and just kind of just get into it. And then maybe later I'll kind of look at what they made or something. Plus, I've seen so many disappointing sequels that I'd rather just not get my hopes up and rather just go in. If I'm even ignorant of who made it, that's fine, So I like having a certain amount of like surprise and mystery in my life. And they're recommending the newest Angry Video Game Nerd. Apparently did a Commodore 64 episode. I haven't seen that. And somebody's saying he covered Bozo's Night Out. So, okay. Hopefully he didn't cover too many I plan to get to. But though it's a wide field for Commodore 64. Okay. I'll answer this real quick. They're asking my thoughts on Ubisoft disabling servers for legacy games. I guess I missed that. I'm saying Might and Magic 10. For some reason, it has a built-in online check and allows you to move from Act 1 to Act 2. There are 8 acts in total, and this check now fails. Yeah, I think it's... Okay, well, here, I'll talk about this, because I was actually surprised this didn't come up. Well, yeah, I think that's bad, and there should be laws against this if you've paid money for the game, and they just turn down the game. Now, this itself sounds like a little bit of a gray zone where they're shutting down part of the game. It sounds like most of the game. And that sucks. That I feel like for most of the stuff is me trying to pursue this on a legal front. I'm trying to stick to just the stuff that the game is dead. You have nothing. Because then it becomes so easy as a legal issue to be black and white. Like, no, you paid money for the game, perpetual license. The company didn't say when they were going to shut it down, and they sold you a perpetual license, and now you can never run the game again. Okay, this looks an awful lot like fraud, but nobody's ruled on it yet, so why don't we get a ruling? Whereas, okay, well, if the game, part of the game doesn't work anymore, well, then more people are likely to dismiss it. Or like thinking, well, so what? You can still play the game, can't you? Well, yes, but nothing, whatever. Throw it out. This isn't important. You guys are entitled gamers, So I don't even want to give that wiggle room. I'm like, no, you hand the money, they gave you the game, and then they shut it down. Like, how does that work? How is that justifiable? It's... And again, that's not even the part I care about so much. I care they destroyed the friggin' game. So, and I see the legality as a means to an end. That said, I'm certainly sympathetic to stuff like this where part of the game works, but most of it's been bricked and is dead. And in this case, it sounds like most of it is. So that's, it's a gray area, but this is kind of only a slightly above black shade of gray there, where it's like, no, you kind of killed that game. What? So yeah, I'm not going to be pursuing these kinds of things. Thankfully, there's not too many of these where it's like a real gray area, because let's say the game shuts down, but all you miss out on is like a special skin that you had to connect to get it. Well, it's like, well, that's not that big a deal, or like one weapon or something, but the rest of the game is playable. I'm not gonna. I still don't like the practice at all, but that's a harder sell to the public to get them on board that this practice is terrible, whereas game destroying it is. And this kind of ties in that GOG got into some hot water lately on this, and I'm glad people are pushing back on them with it, where they sold the new Hitman game, where it sounds like part of it is, okay, it sounds like there was like some I'm not sure. I haven't played the game and I haven't tested this for myself, but just judging by the comments, oh, somebody's mentioning Hitman in the chat now. Judging by the comments, it sounds like on the first level that some people were saying that they were selling a game that's DRM free, but no, the entire thing is DRM and you can't play it at all unless you connect online. And from best I can tell, that is not exactly the case, but it sounds like it's easy to misunderstand that and then think that's what you need to do. Apparently, if you jump through the hoops, you can run it completely offline without having to have an authenticated account. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But even then, you can run the story missions, but apparently the way the game's structured, like there's a whole lot of stuff that this is a game that really benefits from replay value, so that and that does require the online only requirement. So it really is cutting out like a lot of the game by having it behind the online connection, which is DRM. Again, so this sounds like something that's really pushing the limits for for is this games as a service or not? It's kind of both. Because, however, that's not my biggest worry, because like, okay, we still have the maps loading. You can still play some aspect of it. Maybe, so that means there's like a chance in the future this could get modded to maybe reintroduce the other stuff later. Or for all I know, maybe it's been cracked and you can already, I don't know. But that said, it sounds like they kind of went too far. Because, GOG, actually, this is a spectrum. There's stuff that is black and white. Like, if you cannot run the game in any capacity at all, that's clearly like the black zone or white zone, however you want to label it. And then if you have stuff that, no, if you downloaded the game, you never need to connect to the internet again, the game's fully playable, then fine, it's totally safe. And then games like this are like in the gray zone, like for Hitman, where it sounds like, no, we really are losing big chunks of this. Until I heard the Might and Magic 10 Legacy thing. Again, I haven't played these, so I can't comment on them authoritatively. Sorry, lost my train of thought. This Hitman, it sounds like, might be pushing that envelope deeper into the gray zone than any other game I've heard of, where you're losing big stuff if you can't get connected online, but it still is technically possible to play it offline, just with reduced features. And like less extreme on the spectrum, there are already games like that now that, like I'm thinking like Hellgate London was kind of like that. The original disc copy, I think the multiplayer is completely dead, but you do have the single player version, except as I discovered, it looks like the single player version isn't quite so playable the entire way. However, maybe you can cheat to punch through that. Like it's a little broken, but it's technically there. It's not a total loss, but that's kind of a gray zone compared to like if you played it when it first came out. However, I think the Steam copy, you can do multiplayer or maybe different versions, so it's a little different. Test Drive Unlimited 2 is like that. I think now you can only play that game offline, and if you're the sort of person who wants, now the vast majority of that game is there, but if you wanted to race with friends or other people online, I don't think you can do it now. And I think that might be one game, like if you're someone who likes to play, likes to get like 100% ratings in games, you can't do that anymore, I guess, without hacking it, because a few of the percentage points were based on doing races with other players, and that's dead now. And if you try to run the game, it tries to force you online, and then only afterwards that it can't. There's like a delay of it trying to connect. Then you can run it offline, and that's a really loaded game. That game has a lot of stuff in it. You know, you have the was it Ibiza? I never know how to say it. It's Ibiza and like a spruced up version of, was it Oahu for Hawaii, one of the Hawaiian islands in the game. So there's a lot of, and has all the races. You have cutscenes for the races. You can play through all of that and single player. So there's a hell of a lot of content in there for a game that's trying to force you to connect online. This is why I hate this trend so frigging much, because it just means death for these games at the end. Is there a mod for? Oh, so I said there is a mod. Okay, so great. So, but that's only possible really because so much of it was created offline. You could get the game running, you know. But for GOG, I think even games like Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament 2004 are ones that technically have a smidgen of this, because both of those games, they're safe. Like, you're going to be able to play those forever, pretty much, as long as you can get the game running. And you're going to be able to connect to other people online over the internet if you want to. You can do it over the IP address, connect to a server somebody's hosting. Great, you can play that game. It's safe. It's only going away if people get tired of the game, which is how it should be, you know? If somebody wants to play a game, fine, play it. You know, I feel like media should be like that, you know? If you want to watch an old movie, let's say it's an obscure one from like 1936, maybe nobody watched that movie that year. But if you want to watch it, fine, watch it, you know? Now, maybe it's a good movie, you know? I kind of feel like games should be the same way. But however, with Quake 3, I think this is still the case. And Unreal Tournament 2004, there is a central server there that you can connect to, and that gives you a listing of the servers. And that's a lot more convenient than like having to hunt down like a community that's still hosting it, or maybe like a third-party utility or something. So that is a feature that you do not get if they were to shut it down, that does require the online connectivity, and could be seen as kind of a DRM thing. Because, however, that's such a minor thing, and there's alternatives for it that aren't quite as nice, that I think the vast majority of people are going to be okay with this. Thinking, okay, well, you know, this is a convenience. The server's still up, and I can get a listing for other games to play with people online. If that goes down, I can still get a third-party utility, or maybe there's a website I go to that kind of fills that void for who's hosting a server. That it's such a small thing that I think it's worth it. It sounds like Hitman's really pushing that envelope for, no, you're losing a lot of stuff. Okay, somebody's saying the cracked version does unlock all the items. Yes, it's blurry for me. I don't know how big a deal is like these different game modes are, because I could see it as just being a minor thing, or I could see it as being like the whole reason people are playing that game to begin with. So I don't know, but it does sound like it went too far. And really, who you should be upset with are the developers and the publishers, and give them all the hate. But of course, they're not getting that, because nobody ever complains about this stuff from the off-front. However, GOG chose to pick up that hand grenade, so I think they deserve all the criticism they get for it. And hopefully it it causes a chilling effect of GOG doing that sort of thing in the future. It could be the sort of thing where the deal's already locked in and they can't just pull it without getting sued from who makes it, IO or whoever makes Hitman now. But they can at least take that to heart that like, all right, guys, we need to stop. We need to really investigate more what people are missing if we actually accept this game deal. So by all means, like, let them know how you feel about it. Yeah, I saw that they made a statement like they will not tolerate review bombing. I thought that came across as very tone deaf because, I feel like reviews are like the one avenue people have for sort of a democratic feedback towards the developer. Like, so if they hate what you're doing, why should reviews be something sacred if there's something that it's like, let's say you made a good game, but then you're pulling some crap that people really hate. Like, well, why shouldn't people just downvote that to hell? And so that way if you're just browsing, like sometimes I'll see a game that looks promising, and then I'll see the review just through the floor. I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to figure out what happened because something happened that really pissed people off. Like that. Like I think, what was it? Was it The Sinking City? Something like that happened to. Like there was some beef between the developer and the publisher, and like the publisher used a cracked copy of the game that's missing features or something like that. So it's like I think like the good one is on the Epic Store, and like the pirated copy is on Steam or something like that. I'm not sure of the details, but yeah, like so. I mean, that's like the one way players have like a sort of a democratic vote on this, like, and to give feedback. So of course, developers doing unpopular things, that's not going to be popular with them. It's so yeah. I think, and plus there's the implied that came across as tone deaf because they're trying to come down on people for breaking the rules. Well, what do you think people are upset about the game for? The rules of GOG are that they don't sell stuff with DRM, even though, again, if there's like really small infractions towards that, where you have like 99% of the game, but that 1% was tied to online stuff, I think a lot of people will forgive them. But with the Hitman, it sounds like it was way more than 1%. So yeah, hopefully they learn from that. But and I feel like anyone kind of perpetuating this they deserve all the criticism they get because they're not. God, I wish like the level of blowback this got, because I saw like news articles on it, like a lot of comments, people emailing me. I wish every online only game with no end of life plan announced, I wish it got that level of blowback. Because, I mean, see, this is even one of the more minor cases because we're still going to, if they pull the servers to Hitman, we're still going to have something to play that, some way playing that game, maybe mod it back to health or something. God, but people don't see this until it's right in yeah, unfortunately, people don't see the problem until it's at the end, and by then it's a minority of people. So it's kind of that's why the law really needs to get involved with this crap. But yeah, hopefully GOG learns from this. So. Okay, a few more questions, and I kind of want to wind this up. Oh yeah, somebody's asking about favorite settings and environments. God, I kind of want to see. Okay, just you should maybe ask me this next time, too. I kind of want to see like more weird multiverse stuff. When I say multiverse, it doesn't have to be like maximum weird, but like sort of. There was a comic I saw. Was it Scenes from a Multiverse? Is that the name of it? Like fun kind of alien society things that. Yes, yeah. There's a comic. Scenes from a Multiverse. It's a webcomic. And it's not the funniest out there, but I swear all of them, it's like just endlessly creative, like all these different zones they go towards. So I'd like to see more of that sort of thing. I feel like a lot of even a lot of big budget space sci-fi stuff, they don't get as creative as they could be. Okay, they're asking how Windows 10 experience is going, and their Windows 7 holdout. I mean, Windows 10, there's still things that bug me. It's mostly with the UI. Under the hood, it doesn't seem to be horrendous, but I had to jump through a lot of hoops to kind of bring it to heal it, to kind of tame this. They're asking for and I don't let things auto update. So they're asking like general advice. I have like a whole list of things. I'll say if you don't want things to auto update, I found the combination of O&O shut up 10 and running Windows Update Blocker did the job. I found every other solution that you see online, it didn't cut it. Like by itself, it didn't cut it. It re-enabled eventually. Like it might cut it for like a reboot or two, but then like a day or two later, nope, it got activated again. And you don't know how. And you thought things were firewalled. And the UI still bugs me, but I have some plans for it. Actually, that'll come out some of the GUI. Part of the problem is like, it seems like if you want to customize like the look of the windows, it feels like the only game in town now is window blinds. And it looks, I could be wrong, but it looks like window blinds does not support DPI settings that are not multiples of 100%. And that's a problem because then it blurs things. And that's a problem for me on my screen because like if I were to go higher than that, it would just get comically big. And if I were to keep it at 100%, everything would be so tiny it hurts my eyes. So it's like might be the only solution for me to get a different monitor, but that's kind of, which I might be okay with eventually, but then, well, I had some other Windows problems, but I should move along. I actually tried an experiment to get an idea of what it would look like. And I tried setting NVIDIA's, AMD has this too, but it's like dynamic super resolution to bump up the resolution. And then I tried changing the DPI to a higher setting just to get like a ballpark approximation of what it would look like at like 4K or something. And when I did that, something screwed up, probably almost certainly NVIDIA's drivers or how Windows interpreted them. And I got a black screen booting it up. And it just went to black every time. It was probably trying to send a resolution to the monitor that it couldn't handle, and it wasn't smart enough to understand that it was using the dynamic super resolution. And then I learned the hard way, which I think I heard about this before, but I thought like, no, that can't be real. No, it's real. That there's no way, if you cannot boot into Windows, there is no key you can hit to get into like safe mode or VGA mode, which is what I would have done on Windows 7 and every Windows prior to that to bypass that and just kind of fix your system. The only way to do it is to do like a recovery disk. And that's when or to have like, have a bootable install disk. And that's when I discovered that the disk of Windows 10 I had wasn't bootable, or the ISO image of it. And that led me down a rabbit hole of like making a bootable image. I have to, the way there's got to be a utility for this where, like, okay, if you have a copy of Windows, if you use the media creation tool from Windows, then it works. But I think that only works for like the most recent version of Windows. So if you wanted to burn an older copy of Windows 10, then I finally found out what you have to do is you have to set up two partitions on like a USB key or something, where the smaller partition is FAT32 because it won't boot up into it unless it's that. However, that's the FAT32 format is too small to contain all the data for a modern Windows 10 ISO. You need NTFS format for that. So you make the other partition for NTFS, and then you have to put some directories in the FAT32 one and all the others in the NTFS. I forget how it sets up. there's probably a utility that does this, but I haven't found it. Like I saw everything on the internet recommending one called Rufus, and no, Rufus doesn't make it bootable. So you're gonna need something that's kind of designed. The way I ended up fixing it was first I just booted off disk into or ISO image into Linux, and then I got online that way. And then there was like a Windows like recovery. There were a few recovery ISO options, and then I was able to kind of force it to go back to the old resolution. Or no, maybe I might have just set it to recovery mode. I forget, and I was able to get around it that way. So now I need, yeah, a Windows PE, was it Portable Edition? One of those was garbage though. I forget which one. I think it was the smaller one, whichever one that. Here, it might still be my directory. Let me see. Size. Yes, so HBCD _ PE was the one that ended up being good, it looks like. So if there's a distro portable edition that's HBCD, those are the acronyms, and that's probably the good one. Or it worked, and it comes with a lot of helpful utilities, like if you're having other problems with Windows to try to repair it. So, and that one was bootable. Hiren's boot CD, yeah, that probably sounds like that. And you know what? They probably kept that under, yeah, the image is only 2.8 gigs, so that they probably kept that on FAT32 to just simplify things. They probably cut out a lot of the crap you don't need or takes up a lot of space. But yeah, Windows 10, it's not, I'd say the UI still upsets me, and I still hope to find more solutions for it. I'll have to save that for the video. I'd say it's not horrendous if you jump through a lot of hoops getting it nailed down the way you want. Like I have stuff like fast boot disabled. I have stuff so that when you send it, you're asking why the hell would I disable fast boot? Well, sometimes it's not 100% reliable. I care about stability above everything in my system, stability and compatibility. Yeah, I mean, if it was just stability, I might move to Linux, but compatibility is a big part of it too. And there's other things like when you just tell it to shut down, sometimes it doesn't always do that and it just reboots, or it sends it into a sleep mode or a hibernate, and then recovering from that isn't 100% reliable. So I have like a script to forcibly shut it down each time. When I say forcibly, I mean, it doesn't just, it's not like it just cuts the power. It goes through the shutdown process, and it tells Windows, no, we're not kidding. We really want you to shut down all the way. It's like a /F command on the shutdown thing. So if you really will tweak things, then I'd say it's not horrendous, but there's still plenty of things I don't like. But I get VR from it, so that was somebody's saying it's not shutting down. I think you really can if you use the force mode to it. And there might be another registry key you also have to get it to shut down, like to shut down all the way. I mean, I made notes on all this crap, but it's kind of I'd have to dig it up now. So yeah, I mean, get ready. Yeah, my advice is if you're coming from Windows 7, like do a lot of research, or if you want, I could email you my list, but my notes were probably written just for me, so some of them might not make much sense. But I don't mind sharing them. But let's see. I'm skipping a few more questions. Well, this may not be helpful. Somebody's saying, what's your key to a happy relationship? And it made me stop and think about it. And I think this is the part that's not helpful. I think a lot of it is just having a compatible personality with the person you're with. I mean, it helps that both my wife and I genuinely like each other. So, we're kind of understanding and kind of consider ourselves on the same team. And I think that outlook helps a lot. But I mean, it depends on your personality too, like what you want in a relationship. Because I was thinking something I would not deal with well and probably wouldn't last in a relationship is yeah, okay, here's a good general answer. Everybody has problems, so you should decide what kind of personality problems can you deal with. Like these aren't like these are okay for you. You can see she can have a lot of anxieties. So if I have to remind her a lot that things are okay, well that's fine. I can deal with that. Like, but one thing I would not be able to deal with very well in the long term is some people have things. Well, I'm sure everybody knows somebody like this, where if they have problems, they'll like lash out at you and try to make you the enemy, even if you're trying to like help them. And no, I don't deal with that very well. Like, I mean, I'll try to help somebody, but if they're making me the enemy, and unless it really is my fault, like if I was, if I asked to borrow something and I broke it, like, okay, that's all, you're right. That is on me. I need to make good on that. Or if, I mean, but if it's just like you're a person who is there, like, and they're finding like small things that like, no, this is all your fault. Like how, and, or if you're trying to help them with something, and I've never been good with dealing with that. Whereas some people are more patient with that sort of thing. Or, a lot of people are different. Maybe you're a couple that argues a lot, and if they see that you're arguing back, and you hash it out, but then things are fine afterwards. Like I've heard before, like I think this is like in a communications class I had in college, that the best indicator of like a healthy relationship is like how many positive things you kind of say or do compared to negative things, and like a healthy ratio is something like 7-1. Is I remember what they said in the class. Not that I'm measuring this stuff, but if they said if it was like close to 1-1, that they were on their way to a divorce or splitting up or something like that. So that's why you can actually have these because you can have some couples that have like huge blowout fights that are just they're breaking things and just rage against the other person. But then later they've made up and they love each other, so they're just really passionate. Those can actually still be stable couples. So it's just the question is like what's the sort of thing you can tolerate, and like how is the ratio? So if you just genuinely like the other person and could kind of like see that you're on the same side, hopefully, yeah. If you're in a bad relationship, maybe you're not, and that could be the problem. But yeah, I'd say that's and it again, that may not be that helpful though. So yeah, I guess our personality defects seem to be compatible enough with each other. So let's see. Okay. The Secret World might be getting a tabletop RPG. I don't have much of a thought on that, though. I really hope they have an end of life plan, and I'm fine. I'm interested if they want to make more single player games. I think the strongest part of the Secret World was kind of their story and world building. So it seems like if they went all in on like a single player game and they were able to get enough marketing, that might be a winner. Can you recall an instance, an occasion in which which I wish I had a smartphone with you? Yeah, like if there was like a communication problem and we were supposed to meet somebody somewhere and they didn't, or if I remembered something I needed to get from the grocery, then that might be handy. But it's not a big deal for me most of the time. Okay, I'm skipping more questions. Sorry, there's just too many. Okay. Oh yeah, so I was saying when it comes to earlier immersive sims versus newer ones, they can never seem to get into new ones. Same thing with open world first person shooter games and CRPGs. Have you noticed any sort of pattern here as well? It seems like even with the ton of new features, cleaner gameplay, and often much better graphics, older games in these genres grab you much more often. I saw an article the other day, or I know a few months ago actually. I read they said that immersive sims are a design philosophy, not a genre, and I like that because like what can you say what's the difference between like a first person? Because when I think of like something like Deus Ex, I think, oh well, that's a first person shooter RPG hybrid, and it falls pretty neatly into that category. So just saying no, it's an immersive sim. It's like, well, when people, I think that's an unfortunate term because when people think sims, that's kind of different territory. But so the word is already kind of rigged for something else. And I mean, it's a little pretentious, kind of saying your game is so thoroughly believable in recreating this world that it's, I don't know, it always rubbed me the wrong way for some reason. But to the larger question, I think it's I would just call this the sort of Hollywoodizing of a lot of games, where once you get really big money involved, uh, that they tend to be risk averse and want to like just go down these certain beats. And I almost say that wouldn't be such a problem if those are like good beats, but look, writing has gone to hell, I think, in a lot of mediums, like with movies and a lot of games. So that, I mean, for some reason, writing seems to be like the most undervalued aspect in a lot of these things. Whereas I guess because it's not objective, like you can't, like there's some things you can look at, but good writing, it's a very subjective thing. I mean, yeah, if they're making errors or if there's plot holes and stuff. Whereas good graphics, that tends to be much more objective. Like, no, the light's not bouncing this way. Or like, look, there's a glitch in the face here. Or like these textures are poor quality, that sort of thing. That's a much more objective thing. So that's probably what the money people feel more comfortable backing, because they can see for themselves, like, okay, this at least looks good and we can try and sell it there. It's like the writer, like what they want, it's like what they want 100,000 for this, or they want a percentage. We're not going to pay them that, So it's I think they're probably more likely to just junk the devalue the importance of writing, whereas that's like one of the most important parts. And if it doesn't have that good, and that can probably extend to something like game design too, where like an open, like you need, I don't know, like I really don't like this kind of, some games, I don't even know how to explain it. Or sometimes I can figure out aspects of it, but other times I can't. And some games have this feeling like, okay, we have this world here, and it might not even be a good game, but it, like, you feel like you're kind of getting drawn into it and they're trying to tell a story, or this is really fascinating gameplay that you're liking, or like this mood is just incredible and the game's trying to play to it. So there's something about it that's like really intriguing you about it, even if it's very flawed or not, or has problems. Whereas other games, they just feel hollow, and I don't know why. Sometimes because they can have like lots of writing or lots of first-rate production and everything, and I don't know why they feel kind of hollow, and it's like an enigma to me. But it's, yeah, I think there was like a quote on Red Letter Media. It's just like, you may not know they did it, but your brain did, or something. The idea is something in your unconscious is recognizing these patterns that it tells you something's off here. But consciously, you can't really point to any one thing. Sometimes I can. Other times I can't. And it's just this vibe I get that it's screaming at me that, like, no, this just feels like it was designed by committee, or this is just a corporate product where they wanted like A, B, and C. Here it is, and it just, you don't feel anything for it, because I can handle mediocre gameplay if I'm like really sucked into the theme of it or the story, or I can handle like a lower production quality if I just look. I just mentioned earlier Death Trap. The story is minimal and there's nothing special to it. I didn't even care for the visuals that much. I enjoyed the gameplay. I thought the gameplay was pretty good if you like that sort of thing. The gameplay is not perfect. There were plenty of things that bugged me about it, but I felt like this felt like something that it just kind of hooked me in, so it's not a fantastic Yeah, that's the quote. You didn't notice it, but your brain did. Yeah, they mentioned that things. So I don't know. I feel like if there's some people who have more time than I do or want to devote to it, I feel like this is worthy of investigation. You could almost make like a documentary trying to figure out like why does a game with all these resources and aspects going into it not immerse you the same way as just a low budget one. The thing is, you can't just look at one game or a couple games. You need to look at a bunch and try to figure out what is the pattern here. Like, what do all these games have, or a few things these games have? And it's trickier for games too because people are gonna play games for different reasons. Like the gameplay of Silent Hill or Silent Hill 2 is not what just drew me into it. It's that feeling and it's the writing and how they're presenting it to me. So I mean the gameplay is okay. But whereas something like They Are Billions, the story was nothing special. Well, it was okay. It's nothing special for it. But the gameplay was fascinating and these moments that grab me. So games are kind of more multi-dimensional. So you got to figure out like what element of it is drawing you in. So and for some reason, a lot of these older games, they still had investors and the suits, but it was kind of, it wasn't as established, I think. So at some point, the investors had to just sort of trust the game designers to a certain extent. Like they might say, like the investors might know, like, no, okay, we want to be able to shoot people, and we want some monsters, and like I need something to show off the graphics or something, and then if they come back and they show them this reel and they're thinking, okay, good. If that was enough to satisfy the money people, then the developers might get more free reign, and then they can make a good game out of that. Whereas if there's like a big checklist of what the publishers want, then you're probably gonna like strangle the game in its crib as far as like feeling like something more immersive. So it's the money influence is only increased, and you're kind of seeing the result of that. I think with film too, it's rare that I don't see as many movies that kind of draw me in quite the same way. It doesn't mean they don't happen. It's just the ratios feels like it's dwindled a lot, Okay. Couple repeat questions. If the AI singularity was reached tomorrow, let's see, what would your top priority be? How would you react? I'm not sure what to expect. I guess I might take a day off or two. Yeah, like just in case it ends up going apocalyptic, I want to enjoy myself towards the end, maybe not be working on things. It's because you could get anything with an AI itself. I mean, if the AI has been catered to certain rules, then it just, who knows what direction it's going to go. I don't think an AI would necessarily be, I don't think you'd have a Terminator event kind of thing unless it was specifically steered that direction. But I don't think, I still stand by what I said in the Robot Jaws video. I do not think we're going to have to worry about the singularity in our lifetimes. Hey, it's holding true so far. I heard Samsung is trying to recreate like a human brain, but I think it's more of a publicity thing. I don't think they have the power for it. But okay, more questions. How do you feel about living in an apartment? I feel incredibly lucky I got this one. I mean, it's like cheap in the right. I mean, it probably is cheap by USA standards, but it's not the cheapest exactly in Poland, but it's cheap in the right ways. I wouldn't have thought I'd been able to afford something like this previously. So yeah, I mentioned before this would be a good apartment to have a fight scene in because you could break all kinds of furniture and smash through things but there hasn't been mold really. Uh, when the air's bad, we can just keep the windows shut and there's building ventilation. I can record here without disturbing people. It's, we have, Magda has her own room. One of the apartments, the earlier, when she didn't have it, we basically just section. I felt so bad about this too. It seemed to bother me more than it bothered her. But we sectioned off part of the living room with these dividers to try to basically turn that into her room. But so, oh yeah, they're asking, are you perhaps planning to buy a house at some point in the future, or is this too hard a goal in the current circumstance? I think that would be great if I could buy a house, but I'm certainly not planning on it. And like this, it kind of seemed like something. Well, one, I need to get the paperwork resolved here to even be qualified for that in Poland, though that should be happening this year, or else the paperwork should get started this year. The what? But let's say I have that secured. Even before the pandemic, I didn't think that was necessarily in the cards as far as being able to afford it. Maybe if it was really out in the middle of nowhere, I could do that, but then I'd probably have to have a car, which is another expense. And that might be harder on Magda psychologically. So I gotta take her into consideration for that. So if it was something that was like kind of farther out from the city, I don't think I'd be able to afford that. And that was before real estate prices went insane. So was it Louis Rossman has some good stories on that on his channel. I heard a couple that it just sounds like madness. I don't know where we're going with that. So, but I think we're probably going to have inflation for a while, at least. Okay, I don't have any opinions on the new Mario movie. I don't know much about it. So that's another one of the questions. I have played Metroid Zero Mission. And they're saying the strips in Trackmania, it could be the cars in Trackmania were speed limited, and then the speed strip simply unlocks more speed. Yeah, I guess if you had a wireless control, that might be it. I guess I'll have to cover that in a follow-up. Somebody's asking about the game The Drowned God. I played a little bit of that, like way back when. Like I was in a budget bin, like in the 90s. And I didn't get very far. I remember the vibe. It just felt pretty depressing. And like that's just not my thing. What I've found is overwhelmingly my emotional judgment on a game when I was younger tends to hold up almost perfectly. So if I thought the game was good, but then I had problems, or like, yeah, I really like that game, or I didn't really like it, it tends to hold up. So I probably won't be covering that because really depressing games just aren't my thing. I had enough of that already in my life. See, even with like horror, I don't like the horror that's like really depressing. I like the horror that's just trying to scare the hell out of you because then it's more like a thriller thing. So. Okay, I'm skipping some more questions. Well, someone's saying, what will I do after Freeman's Mine is finished? Well, the easy answer is Game Dungeon. That's why I created Game Dungeon, to have an escape route once Freeman's Mine was finished. I hope to do more original stuff like Silver Protection or other series, but I can't promise anything with that as far because animation can just bury me. But Game Dungeon is a very safe answer on that because I can keep doing Game Dungeon. So, if somebody's asking how I feel about remastered games, if it bugs me or anything, I kind of don't care really. I mean, I guess I guess what I don't like is remasters that are not obvious, that are not slam dunk better than the originals, because a lot of stuff has changed, and you can point to stuff, to real obvious things that are worse. I keep thinking of that Fable one where they they tinted everything brown. Fable, a bright, colorful, going for a fairy tale storybook feel. Like, why? And I've heard there's other remakes that have gone poorly. I think one of the Silent Hills, they had a remake that went badly. Or so if they're just re-releasing it, and the only or the new one has bugs the original didn't, or like, I don't like having to do research on whether the remake is just better or a side grade or what. If it's just, now you can argue that like the original game with maybe the models they use aren't quite as, yeah, maybe the textures are like slightly different than the original and you prefer the original. It's like, okay, but they're very clearly trying to follow the original feel. Then okay, then I'm not like an absolutist on this, but I don't like having to research if the newer one is actually better or not. Like, from what I can tell, the remake of Diablo 2 looks like it's better for the most part. I mean, it sounds like they might have gotten that. I don't know. I haven't played it. But like, I can see the side by side. It at least looks like it's an improvement. Or if it's different, like the differences are very subtle and they're really trying to be true to the original. So, I mean, for me, for a remaster, I kind of want that from like really old games, like early 2000s max, like 90s and earlier, where the visual difference between the original and the new one is so big, it's almost like a new game. So like what they're doing with System Shock would be a good example. Or if they had a remake of the original Grand Theft Auto, like 1 and 2, and maybe, was it London 1969? If they made something like that, but you could have it like on the ground view level, that would be great. So, yeah, those are the remakes I'm interested in. The ones that, whereas I feel like everything from like mid 2000s onward, it's like, okay, I guess it might look a little better, but I mean, the original wasn't so bad, unless there's something big they added, where maybe like they expanded the world a whole bunch, or that you can kind of free roam stuff, or the original had, yeah. Well, Resident Evil 2, somebody mentioned that looks like a good example. That looks like they added, it's almost like a new game compared to the original. So I'm in favor of stuff like that. Okay. So I was asking about Linux. You will get a lot of my Linux gaming thoughts in a future video. I'll just say that. Though that one's not happening this month. Okay, I'm just skipping some more. I have seen the Catwalk C for VR. Are you going to look into trying it? I would love to try that, but I don't know where I could do that. And that's a big expense to just buy blindly. So I'd rather that, I'd like to see a lot of user feedback before I'd consider using something like that. And I got to make sure I have enough space too. But yeah, I am interested in it. How do you use skateboarding tricks for evil? I guess you could, well, something where part of the trick is hurting someone, I guess. They're probably not going to get that evil. I mean, I guess you could kind of goad someone into doing a trick that is like really going to hurt them, but Somebody's asking if I've heard of Warhammer Online Return of Reckoning. Look at the... Oh, yeah, I guess I don't link to that too much. The old Dead Game News channel, it shows me running around in that. So I use that as sort of filler footage. Somebody's asking about my thoughts on like crypto and NFT with regards to games. I don't really have many thoughts on it aside from I want games to not be destroyed. So I don't know how much crypto makes that a threat or not. So. Most modern style, old school first-person shooters like a Medieval or Dust don't bring the bad things of old school FPS like labyrinth-style maps and keycard hunting, and if they do, it's toned down. Can you comment on this? I haven't played a Medieval. I did play Dusk. I'm trying to think. There was a little bit of that, but you're right. It did get toned down, so I appreciated that. I guess what I didn't like about Dusk was like some of the maps. They kept feeling like really abstract, and I don't know. It didn't. It kind of takes me out of the game a little bit more when it's like that. Whereas I like it when it feels like kind of natural, but like if it's low definition, that's fine. But it feels a little more natural, and then you have like a clever use of how it's arranged to make the gameplay fun. Like this is a bad example for single player, but I'm thinking of first thought that came into my mind was the warehouse map for, was it Streets or something? I forget the exact name map for Counter-Strike. It's where the terrorists start inside like this warehouse and they have hostages, and the counter-terrorists have to figure out how they want to infiltrate the building, if they want to come in through the door or the top or whatever. And yeah, the gameplay on that, I thought it was Assault. Thank you, Assault. Yeah, that is great gameplay, or at least I remember it having a lot of fun gameplay, and that feels like a real world area. That feels like that could absolutely, or at least what I remember, I haven't played it in forever, but that could be a real warehouse somewhere. But they made it so you can do things to kind of tweak it, where it's like, okay, maybe we'll shut off these exits and try to funnel people a little more this way, but it kind of looks like a real area. And I really, those kind of draw me in more. I don't know. And I just realized when I was thinking of immersive sims, the question earlier, some people just look at the immersive sims aspect as like, oh, you have to have player choice and how to do this. So like, oh, you have to have the stealth option or the brute force option. I mean, some people, maybe that's what they care about more. I just care if it's fun for that. And as far as the gameplay, even a stealth game, like I'm not great at stealth games, but maybe you can have an easy mode for me if it's a stealth game, or if it's an action game, I can do that. That's not the part about games that the part about Deus Ex or was it System Shock 2, it wasn't that there are all these different ways to approach the problem. In fact, I think sometimes if you cater to that too much, that kind of breaks the immersion, and which completely undermines making an immersive sim game, because now it's feeling a little too gamey. You got to really hide that stuff if you're going to do that. There was a joke on that with that Deus Ex spoof video on Human Revolution where they recreated Human Revolution and the trailer for it, or a demo in the original Deus Ex engine, Unreal Engine as a mod, where they had these crates you could place to hop up over places, and on the crates they had like these 2 footprints on it, like, hey, hint, hint, that you can stand on the. See, if you do that, that breaks your immersion. So you kind of need a certain. I mean, I don't care about that too much. For me, it's more like, am I really digging this world that I'm in? But let's say there are players that, no, that's what they want. They want to be able to choose how they approach it. Well, fine then. Don't spoon feed that to them. They have to discover, like, and that means some methods might be more obvious or okay than others. You can't make them all equal. Like, so let's say, you resolve a hostage situation, and then let's say, all right, like, well, I guess they did. The Deus Ex did a little bit of that, but they just let you choose your weapon and suggested you go some ways. Well, let's say for the stealth option, the game isn't even gonna tell you. Like, you're gonna have to find that on your own. Like, the game's gonna say, okay, go in this way. Make it sound believable. Like, we recommend going in, throwing a flashbang, and punching through the resistance that way. But if you want, you may want to try coming in like the back way through the kitchen. We think there might be less resistance there, but that might make so the game's giving you a couple of options that like a real tactical team might give you. But maybe there's some vent on the roof somewhere else, and those are both not stealth options. Like you're going in, but one's a little stealthier, one's a little noisier. You want the true stealth option, you have to go someplace completely different, and the game didn't even tell you because they didn't know. And you need a lot more of that. You need the player to discover things on their own. And maybe the more modern ones are spoon-feeding you too much. I don't know. Yeah, in the comments, somebody put, here, idiot. Exactly. You gotta get... It's okay to have the here, idiot option, but that needs to be like just one way. You can't give here, idiot for all of them. And again, if it makes sense that you would be told by other characters, to kind of keep the immersion, that you will go this, that you should probably do this, or hey, maybe they're demanding you do that, but you don't have to, but the game doesn't tell you. So I think that might be another aspect of why something feels like it draws you in rather than shoving you. I mean, that that there's more there than you realized, and the game did not tell you, and you really got to bury a lot of it, and it might be burying more than a company with a lot of investment money is comfortable doing. Whereas older games, they didn't have a problem with that. Yeah, somebody's saying, then again, it's not very immersive for someone to snoop around for alternative solutions, which may or may not exist in a life or death situation. Yeah. See, it's a balance. Like if you have hostages and they're going to kill them soon, yeah, then you maybe don't have time to screw around. But there's other hostages. It's like, yeah, we've set up a perimeter. They said they'll radio us for our demands, but we're waiting to hear on them. Look, hostage situations that last a long time are not unbelievable. Like you can set up a tense situation that you still have all the time you need in the game to resolve it. So yeah, you need to follow your own rules as far as the immersion. That's another, I mean, that should go without saying, but that's probably a huge part of it. Like if it's a standoff situation where the terrorists have given some demands and like they want a helicopter, we've said it's going to take them a few hours to get to them. We haven't heard back from them, so we don't know if they've accepted those demands or not, and we haven't had any contact. So we don't know how urgent it is. Well, fine, then you can explore everything, and you don't have to feel like you're getting cut out of it. So yeah, but because the way Human Revolution did it, I mean, it's like, yeah, I could talk to all these people, and then the hostages die. Well, then you shouldn't have set up all this stuff for people to talk to right in the middle of an urgent situation. That's just, it's a game, and you know, immersive sims are supposed to disguise that, you know, which you can do that and have it still feel immersive. That should have been like the talk before we got the call to go there. And then the game should have tried to shut you off. And if it didn't, like, you know, shut you off, like, hey, get to the elevator or the helicopter or something. But if you could wander off, then you should have everybody be busy. Like, you know, it's just like, hey, I heard about that call. Are you going in on that? Like, it's just like, hey, you should maybe get to that call, huh? Like, so it's just, and that's not unbelievable. Like, or it's like, oh, hey, what are you doing down here? I thought you were on that. I thought you had to respond to that call. So, or like, hey, I'm too busy to talk right now. So you're manipulating the world in a little bit, but it's in a way that still can be believable, you know? So it doesn't mean that everybody, so you have other people not busy. Other people just don't talk to you. They just ignore you. Like, sometimes you can't talk to everybody. That's fine. I mean, you just realize they're there doing their own thing. So you got to cut off those options while you want the person to get to the urgent situation. Then have the small talk stuff when it's in a less time-pressing situation. Because if you conflict them, then you have an obvious conflict within your own game for what you want the player to do. Like, do you want them to get immersed? Or do you... No, the immersion gets broken. So do you want them to go do the action? Or do you want them to talk to people? If you want to do it both at the same time, you set it up in a way that breaks the immersion. And there are other ways of doing that. So, okay, I'm talking way too much. Let's see. Okay, I'll answer this last question, and then I'll take ones from the chat. You can put 3 equal signs in front of your question, and I'll try to get to a few. Last question, are there any turn-based RPGs that have completed since I made the Revenant one? No, but do I plan on playing any in the future? The ones I probably most want to play are Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones, and maybe BattleTech. Like, thematically, I'm just totally on board with those. Those seem so cool that I might, maybe I'll run a cheat or something to not have to deal with as much of the turn-based stuff. But those probably would be top of my list if I had to play a turn-based game. Okay, so checking questions now. In the New Beginning, you said that tornadoes in Europe by 2050 were ridiculous. Were those my exact words? I mean, well, there's a tornado in Czech Republic in a few months. Okay, maybe I got it wrong. I mean, I mean, they were showing it as like just devastating. Yeah, like then to take out like the Eiffel Tower or something like that. I mean, maybe I could be. I have to walk back some of that. Yeah, you could be right. I have to see what my exact words were. Okay. Well, were they in the future by 2050 or was it like 2030? Okay, well, whatever. It would work out the same. In Half-Life, yeah, well, okay, just one thing I wanted to say on that quick. If things are worse than I thought they would be, like I am a big believer in playing it safe. Like, hey, maybe it could get worse than we think we're going to be. Why not have a contingency plan for that? Or, hey, why not act as though it is going to get worse and shift things that way when we can? Hey, I think I don't have anything to prove on that because at the very start of this, I'm asking, well, hey, maybe we do have a character event, and what should we do to preserve our data? So, hey, maybe we get lucky, another one misses us, or it's not that big. Our data's fine, just caused a few disruptions. So I think I'm walking the walk on that. So don't think I'm like trying to dismiss the concerns of global warming or weather events of that. I was if I did, I probably just took a bad guess on predicting the timetable for that. So, but that doesn't mean we couldn't be more prepared. You know, I mean, so that's what I wanted to leave it up. So don't think of that. With the singularity though, I feel like that's such a that feels like such a long shot that I don't think we need to worry about that one. But with something like global warming and environmental collapse, it's more like we have so much friggin' evidence that we're collapsing things. The question is how fast and how much and in what ways. So it's not even a question of will this even happen or not. Yeah, and with the singularity, I saw a quote somewhere, I forget where, but I loved it. It was the difference between real intelligence and artificial intelligence is like the difference between plants and artificial plants. I love that because that really nails it. Artificial plants can really look like the real thing if they're good ones. They can fool me sometimes. I mean, like I'm not the cheap ones, but on the cellular level, there are worlds apart. So yeah, you know, I love that saying. That's how I think of AI. So yeah, I just wanted to address that aspect because I was never trying to dismiss environmental stuff. I've seen that as a threat for decades. It's just a question of how big, how fast, that sort of thing. Okay, chapter surface tension. When you encounter the first tank, you play peekaboo with the grunts at multiple tunnel exit points and go back inside. They'll go berserk, the grenades everywhere, eventually destroying the tank and killing each other. How'd you have made Freeman react to that situation? Oh, I don't know. I don't remember the exact. Freeman is a big fan of friendly fire. I'll say that, like from the enemy side. So I don't know exactly how I have reacted to that, but for sure, like big fan, you know. So. You said you get interested in playing a game based on the atmosphere, feel how cool it is from screenshots and trailers. What about movies? Do you watch the trailers, read descriptions? I very rarely watch trailers for movies because they're so prone to spoiling things now. I mean, there's less to show. I mean, a game could be like 6 hours, 8 hours, or dozens of hours. So they can, and it could be like the story isn't the big draw necessarily for that game. For game trailers, it kind of depends. Like, it's like escalate. Sometimes screenshots and a quick description show me enough, in which case I might skip the trailer. Usually if I'm watching game trailers, it's like I'm either really intrigued and want to see more, or I'm just on the fence. It's like, am I interested in this or not? Let's get a better feel. For movie trailers, I might, if I am really on the fence, like, and even then I might not watch the full thing because I don't want the whole story spoiled. Movies, I usually look more at just the descriptions. I mean, not even extensive ones, but just like, okay, a movie I might watch before Halloween. To give you an example, it's usually not this bare bones. I think it's a new zombie movie and it has Nicolas Cage. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay. It's not that I would watch Nicolas Cage in anything, but I feel like I genuinely like zombie movies, but I figure if it's probably good enough that he agreed to be in it, then yeah, I'll give it a shot. So, and I don't even want to know anymore. I forget the name of it. People probably know in the chat. Basically, I like to be surprised in movies, but I like to have just a clue as to like what genre this is. Like if it's gonna be kind of soap opera-ish and lots of relationship drama, then yeah, that's probably not my thing. But if it's, you know, more of a adventure or sci-fi, then I'm probably going to be more on board. So, you said you're interested in, okay, no, I just answered that. Do you need more viewpoints or day-to-day experience in using Linux? If so, can we talk later via email Something. Yeah, well, yeah, you can, and I plan to. Yeah, you can definitely email me about that. The big thing. Okay, you're not gonna like hear this. My biggest concerns about Linux are game compatibility and other software compatibility, and sometimes virtual machines don't cut it because I'm doing stuff with VR now. So I need the VR, and I'm doing stuff with getting legacy games working in VR. So, so I'm not even sure. I think that's like bare bones, if not non-existent, for some areas in Linux. Like I think maybe you can get some games working like with the index now for on Linux, but what the oh yeah, forcing anti-aliasing is something I care about too, where like on the driver, whole bunch of old games, no anti-aliasing support in the game at all, but you could force it on through the drivers, and then that's much more touch and go in Linux. That's something I'm gonna look into. Um, and when I say game compatibility, I'm not necessarily worried about like the newest games. I figure there's probably a lot of interest in that. I'm kind of looking at like older games that could be a kind of concern, or like stuff off the beaten path, you know. And just I don't know. I'd kind of like to see more development on the UI for Linux, and like let's. I want to see like what's the best Linux can look that doesn't have like a flat theme that looks like it's trying to imitate Windows. You know, I feel like there was some really cool stuff in the past, and I haven't seen as much cool stuff, newer stuff, newer themes. So I don't know. It's a lot of little things for Linux, but I feel like Linux is like I look at Linux as almost like a fire escape to a building. So if Windows decides to burn the building down, which they could, then Linux is all that's left. So I kind of want there to be as much development as possible on it. But yeah, like, okay, here's a perfect example, which I mentioned at the beginning. I really want to try to get Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed working in stereoscopic 3D in VR. I think there's a chance I can do that on Windows. If I can get the game running, Vorpex may or may not work on it. I'm guessing it probably won't. But then, like with some wrappers, I can try to use. I think there was this plugin. It was like Reshade Super Depth 3D. That one's not as good, but if that's the only game in town, that's the only game in town. So that's a tall order, I think, for Linux. So I'm kind of like in this. I'm unfortunately in many niches for that Linux may or may not cater to. My impression of Linux is it's good if you're like deep into programming, and it's good if you're doing like real basic stuff, like checking your email, listening to music, just web browsing. I think it's arguably better than Windows for that stuff, actually. But then there's like this in-between stuff where there's all kinds of specialty programs and like obscure interest. Like, well, actually, maybe this is better now. Like, for instance, like what's the current situation for running sound banks on Linux for MIDI stuff, or what are some other weird things I do? Well, the UI customization, I feel like the potential is there, but it feels underdeveloped because a whole lot of people are programming on Linux, where it actually makes sense to keep things more in the keyboard and in the command line for them. And yeah, many Nietzsche's in the chat. So I don't know, but yeah, you can email me about it. I feel like I'm unfortunately one of your worst case scenarios for Linux, but not by choice, but because of the stuff I do. Yeah, or hey, here's another challenge for you on Linux. I have run the original Unreal in stereoscopic under VorpX, not using the Z buffer wrapping to do it, but by having two separate cameras. And I've done that on Windows using the Samsung Odyssey Plus. Now, okay, maybe I could upgrade, like maybe the Pimax is a better fit for Linux because it's more open. I can accept that I might have to upgrade to something better, and then that works on Linux. But is the software, is that even possible on Linux? See, if it's not, then that's what kills me on Linux is I have too many things I want to do that aren't possible. Or they become possible 15 years later, and that just frustrates me. So, but at the same time, I get really frustrated by Windows too, so I'm just in no man's land. And the thing is, you can dismiss that, but that was a fabulous experience for me doing that. Or playing Kingpin. That was another game. I played it in full stereoscopic, and I was just wowed by parts of it. Like, this is like living part of the dream for me. So, you know. Okay, try and get through faster on these. Do you shut down your computer when you're done with it, or you just leave it on so you can quickly access? I shut it down. Like if I know I'm going to be doing like a big download or some processing, I might leave it on. Like I might be getting in the habit now of, yeah, I have a hotkey I do that for, that I set up to do it so it does it the right way and shuts it down all the way. But like when I record stuff from Shadowplay, that seems to be the light. Like I do that for some games because that's like the most lightweight way to do it on an NVIDIA card. But I'm noticing like in editing that might not be as nice because there's always this like micro delay when scanning stuff. So I might start doing this. I think I did this a little bit for the editors when I did Echo as a test. But I might, for this next episode, I have a lot of footage I'm gonna have to chop down. So what I may do is re-render that stuff as proxy clips. So it'll be lower quality, but it'll be just loaded with keyframes. So scanning will be almost instant. And just, maybe I'll just set that to do that overnight and just go to bed and like leave it running doing that sort of thing. But yeah, if I'm not doing it, I just shut it down. I mean, might as well save on the power. And it doesn't take that long to boot up, so. Okay. Somebody's asking about Cruelty Squad. I answered that in the last video chat. So I answered that at the end. It was another live. I'm not that interested in it. It doesn't seem like my kind of game. I go into more detail on the last one. If you had to live in the United States, where would you pick? Well, someplace forested and mountainous. I mean, I grew up partially in Virginia. I'd be fine with like that whole region, like Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina. But I mean, I've never been there, but I think I might like it in parts of like Washington or Oregon. There's a lot of forested mountains there too. It's more evergreens. Though I think the cost of living will probably be a lot higher there too. So, and not, well, okay, no, I'm going to, I was going to get into something kind of dark and I don't want to do that. This is something I haven't said before in a previous chat. Any thoughts on Bloodline 2 and Knights of the Old Republic remake? Not really. I mean, I'll probably play Bloodlines 2. I've never been huge into Star Wars, but I mean, maybe I could try it out eventually. You know, the thing that I don't really get into Star Wars that much is I kind of want to see a bunch of stuff I've never seen before. So if it's like a totally new world in Star Wars where I'm seeing like weird societies and how they function or new technology, like we're introducing some more sci-fi concepts. I think that's what would rope me in for a new Star Wars game. So it's like, yeah, we're still grounded, like people are still using blasters and we have like a lot of recognizable uniforms and some aliens, but then we're getting into some weird sci-fi stuff also. So if Star Wars is just like a vessel for more sci-fi that I haven't seen, then great. But that's why I was kind of curious about that one that got canceled. It was, I forget what it was called. It was like Level something, where it was like an action one where you're going to be playing a bounty hunter and you're going to this place where there's just like hundreds of different levels of this society. I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds cool and exotic. I'd like to see how that works. Or like maybe different levels have different themes. And Yeah, that could be really neat. So naturally, the one I'm most interested in gets canceled. So for Bloodlines 2, I mean, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, I okay, I guess I'm in the minority tier. I thought it was all right, but it didn't quite rope me in. However, it did not give me the feeling that it was hollow. So I'll give it that. It just didn't quite click with me. I'll say that. You said you got a good explanation what happening Fed finances stuff from someone. Could you publish it for others to read, please? Yeah, tell you what, I'll put it in a paste bin. I won't give his personal info or anything. I don't want to like spam up Twitter with that or the website because I figure most people aren't interested in it. But I'll put it on a paste bin and I'll put it in the link to the description of this video chat. I think that's a good compromise. So I'll copy what he said. I'll take out any personal info. He gave some links for more material too. So yeah. Because I'm fine with sharing it. I just don't want to clutter it up with people who are coming here for game stuff. It's like, Ross, why the hell are you talking about Federal Reserve or like interest rates? Like, what the hell is this? So as long as I can kind of separate that, I'm fine with that. What's the most you spend on a game nowadays? Ever go beyond that limit? Well, if it's a gift, I can go higher. Like because if somebody really wants it and like it's like I can't really get out of it. But okay, lately it's pretty rare I'm going above $750 these days, unless it's a bundle. Like I'm become. It's never been easier to go so cheap. But you gotta wait for the sales. Like I basically never buy stuff that's on sales, but I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time I even went to $10. Okay, no, I did go to $10 and I got Risen 1, 2, and 3. And I had the original, so I'm basically getting kind of 2 games there. I haven't played Risen 2 or 3. And I bought, was it Arcania, which a lot of people say is bad, but I'm keeping my expectations low, so maybe it'll be okay. And that was like it was Poland, it was 10 zloty, which divide that by 3.75. So it's probably around $3, something around there. But yeah, I'm going super cheap. The thing is, here's my reasoning is, let's say there's a game I'm really interested in, it's coming out. Well, I'm thinking, well, yeah, I am interested in that, but I know it's going to be cheaper. Well, there's a few like that. Like, I really want to play Cloudpunk. I really want to play Generation Zero. There's some other ones. There's one that came out lately though. Well, I'm drawing a blank, but yeah, I'm curious about Journey to the Savage Planet. I think that was the name of it. A lot of people are mentioning Outer Wilds. That's another one I'm curious about. But I have a whole lot of other games I can be playing that I got already for cheap. And I just look at my library and I see all the screenshots and I get excited about playing them. So it's like, yeah, I'll fire up one of those that I have. So, okay, let's see. You end up watching the Castlevania anime. I remember you had some interest in it from a few chats ago. Yes, I did. I really don't watch much anime, but I love Castlevania, and it was very well done. I haven't seen the newest season. Maybe I'll watch that around Halloween. I'm fascinated how much of Castlevania they're able to work into that, where it never really had an explanation at all. And they make it work. So, like I was thinking of like in season 3 they had like the conglomeration of, like in Symphony of the Night, maybe some others, you have like the ball of bodies that you attack, and they sort of worked that into the story and had make sense. I was like, wow. So, and oh man, the art on that is so beautiful sometimes. Like, I think it was the beginning of season 3 where you see Alucard just kind of going through his day around the castle, and like the lighting they have from the morning, oh, it's just gorgeous. Like I would like to live in a place like that. So let's see. Maybe I'll find a screenshot to put in the chat or something. Have you seen any games worth mentioning at Steam's Next Fest? Oh, I'm sure they're there. I can't even bother to keep up. I'm still not used to this concept of you have limited time to play the demo. It's like, I'm busy, man. I gotta take things on my own time. Like what? Why should I jump through hoops to play a demo? Isn't the point of the demo to rope you into playing the full game? Why not just make the demo a permanent thing? Like, you give people a taste, see if they want to play the game, Try out Letterboxd. Oh, for the list of movies I've watched. Oh, I don't know. I think just the spreadsheet would probably work better because I'd be suspicious that there might be movies that they may not even have on there because I can watch weird stuff too. Plus, like mainstream movies, I'm going to remember. I mean, I'm not going to forget that I've seen Ghostbusters or The Mummy or Speed or it's these weird titles that that never got that big that I might have forgotten the title of completely, but I remember the movie. So I don't need to eliminate a whole bunch of stuff that was never in jeopardy of me forgetting. Okay, I've seen one last question. Have you tried House of the Dying Sun? It's a short space sim with VR support. No, but I'm aware of that. I can't remember if it's on the game list or not. If it's not, it was like on the almost category. Plus, I'm not looking to play a lot of space sims in VR because I'm slowly developing a tolerance. But boy, I remember I tried just a minute or two of Elite Dangerous, and it was just like instant motion sickness. So I'm still kind of a lightweight despite my enthusiasm. Okay, I gotta go eat. Thanks for showing up. I guess show up next weekend for Sunless Sea if you want to watch a stream of that. But there's real videos coming this month, for sure. Okay, I mean it. Let's see.